All right, we are at 6:05, so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Slight delay just because we had a few technical difficulties, but we are up and running. If we can start with the Pledge of Allegiance, the flag is in the rear of the room. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Do want to discuss our meeting guidelines and safety protocol. Purpose of the meeting is for the board to conduct board business. Meeting is open to the public and is recorded. You can listen to all past board meetings by visiting board docs through our district website. And this meeting is being presented via Zoom. It's not appropriate for audience members to interrupt board business or ask questions during the meeting. And agenda items will be addressed as listed in the agenda. In the case of an emergency, if you are here present physically in the room, there's an exit to that side where everyone came in, but there's also an exit to this side as well. And with that, that brings us to our vision and mission statements. Director Roca, would you like to read our vision and mission statements?
Sure. Our vision is our community inspires and prepares each student to thrive. Our mission is in connection with our community, the school district empowers staff to inspire hope and provide flexible, innovative learning opportunities in a safe and respectful environment so each student thrives.
Thank you. And Director Halverson, would you like to read our land acknowledgement? Sure.
The Sequim School District administrative and school buildings sit on the ancestral land of the S'Klallam people. While the S'Klallam traditionally come from one nation, history has led to the formation of three sovereign S'Klallam tribal governments. Lower Elwha S'Klallam tribe, located in Port Angeles, Washington, Jamestown S'Klallam tribe, located in Sequim, Washington, Fort Gamble S'Klallam tribe, located in Kingston, Washington. The district's primary partnership is with the Jamestown S'Klallam tribe. Today, the tribe and district share a partnership that includes official consultation on program and funding changes that may directly affect American Indian and Alaska Native students, as well as holistic service planning for students to remain successful in their educational journeys.
Thank you very much. And with that, that's going to bring us to our special presentation that we have this evening with our robotics club. Welcome.
Is this thing working?
Hi, so my name is Joe Kerner.
Hi, I'm Georgia Bullard.
I'm Gavin Mayfield.
We're part of the robotics club here at the high school. So obviously we're part of the robotics club at the high school. I mean, why else would we have a robot here, right? So each year we make one of these robots, and each year the parameters for the robot changes. So like this year was a interesting year, to say the least. So it was primarily supposed to be scoring cones and cubes on this wall and then having a balance beam, which is fun, but obviously this doesn't look like I could grip cones or cubes. Yeah, so we had a, oh goodness, where am I going with this? How do I get rid of that? I can speak loud about it. Scrap what I just said. So, we're part of the robotics team. We've got this robot here for you. And it is so we're part of a big organization called First Robotics. First Robotics is a organization that spans the world. There's several thousand teams in First Robotics all across the world, spanning from one side to the other side, you know, the whole world. Anyway, like I said earlier about the robot game this year, it was supposed to be cones and cubes and all that, but it's not just the game. So it's about the problem solving and the way we, the behind the scenes of it, kind of. So there's a lot of, oh, I'm losing it again.
Anyway,
Thanks.
so First Robotics has a thing called gracious professionalism, and what that means, basically, it's like being competitive while still being really friendly, right? So when you go to competitions, if your robot breaks, like, I don't know, an arm falls off or something, then another team will help you out by giving you pieces that you need to fix it, or pieces you need to take the arm off completely. And with that, we're going to go on to the next slide. Right, so what do? This is what we do.
Oh, okay, I'm up again. So, like I said earlier, we build the robot to go do a competition. And each year the competition changes from year to year. So you can have a field, it's about here to the bookshelf wide from about, I don't know, let's say that spinning thing to these tables. And that's
27 by 52.
Pardon?
27 by 52.
27 by 52 feet. I knew that.
That made more sense.
Yeah. Anyway, that is the diameter,
That's
the dimensions of the field is the only thing that can change in each year. So from year to year, they can change the flooring to the game. And this year, it was the tone and cube scoring, and we did it poorly. So, like Georgia said, an arm falling off. So we originally, if you want to go to the next slide, please. This is our first version of the robot. We had 2 competitions this year, and because that's how the way it works, and you go up to districts and off the world. We unfortunately didn't make it to districts this year. We missed it by like 3 spots, which stunk. If we won 1 match, we would have made it. 1 more match. Anyway, so our first robot was designed so it could pick up the cones and cubes and score the game. But we had a slight mishap in basically every single one of our 12 matches, where one thing would break after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other. And in between matches, we were fixing it all the time. So you can see there's no more arm on this thing. You can see there's no more little triangle thing. You can see it's a lot different. It's because
it fell off.
It fell off, yeah. I promise you, I did not want to remove it, but I just happened and it just kind of... So we renamed it, so we got back to this competition after this horrible mess that we had, and rebuilt it to be this M1 tank of a robot that we call the Black Knight. Monty Python reference, you know, I'll bite your ankles off, mirrored fleshwood, you know all that. As you can see by the helmet on top as well. And we rebuilt it to be, we were like 70 pounds when we went into the first competition. Our second competition was like 120, which is like drastic. And we changed our view of the game to be more of a defensive style of game, when it's typically an offensive side. I'm going on a huge tangent, but
yeah, basically, that's what happened. The robot arm fell off. We rebuilt the robot just to be a drive base, so it kind of runs around and works as a defense robot, which means it stops the other robots from scoring cones and cubes, which you guys will get to see an example of in a few minutes. We're going to go to the next slide, and this slide, or 2 slides from now. The other one. All right, money, everyone's favorite thing. We all love money. So our yearly budget is $40,000. We typically don't use all that money because we have a lot of parts already, but we get all this money from the places here. We have an OSBI grant, which is our biggest contributor. We are sponsored by Boeing, like the planes. And yeah. We also get ASD club funds, community support, First Robotics gives us grants, and we get CTE money, which are all really great. And we try to give back to the community through community outreach because the community helps us. So most recently we did a car wash. We're planning some other fundraisers to do this year, and we take part in the irrigation parade and some other events.
And county fair. We were at the county fair last year.
Yeah. And then this year is a competition video. Let's hope it works.
Does not.
Well, you guys don't get to see a competition video. If you want to see the competition video, if you go onto Google and type in First Robotics,
First walk.
First WA Sundome 3826, you can see our competition. And that'll be all.
I do want to add this a little bit. One thing I was most proud of with the team, this is a very, very young team. Joe here is the only person we had returning with any real experience. He'd been on the team since a freshman. We had 2 other people who came about half the season last year. Everybody else, first year. A lot of freshmen, brand new people. So they didn't really fully grasp what they were getting into until they went to competition. And so the first robot we had wasn't really ready. It was built, but it wasn't tested. We didn't get a chance to really put it through its paces and find out what the weaknesses were. The thing I was most proud of them about, yeah, we had some issues, we fixed them all, that they adjusted their tactics of the game. Instead of being an offensive, they immediately switched over to defense, discovered ways where they could score being a defensive robot. And then at the end of that event, they came back, they talked it over, decided to make a conscious decision to switch over to the strictly defensive robot, and were able to then score a lot better, or a lot more, I should say, by pushing people in different zones. There are ways you can score on defense, and they were able to take advantage of that with the robot they have now, and actually performed quite well. In their second event, they got into in the finals. They won they were part of the number 7 alliance to face the number 2, won that match. Next round, they were still number 7, go against number 3, won that match. And they're one step to go into the finals, and their primary offensive team member, because it's an alliance of 3 robots that compete with one another, had a failure in their system, which is not uncommon, and it prevented them from scoring like we wanted them to score, and we lost that match. That hadn't happened, they'd have gone all the way to the finals. The consolation round they faced probably the best, which was the best team, Jack and Boss, and the Lions, and lost that one out. But they did a really good job. They took a lot of pride in what they were doing, and I love the fact that they had this story about how they changed their tactics in midstream. And only 2 weeks between the 2 events, they realized they really couldn't just simply rebuild what they tried to do the first time and make it work, but they could do this and make this work really well, and they just embraced it. They were very good about when it came to talking to the judges about their story about the Black Knight. Other team members loved what they had done, and out of the 120 teams in our district from Oregon and Washington and Alaska, they finished 51st. So they were super close, top 50 get into the championships. There are a couple of the teams ranked below us that got on because they were chairman award winners, so they actually realistically had to be in the top 48. And that last event that we had to watch was the first weekend of spring break, and I kept watching that thing, and after it was over, they were sitting at 48. I knew the awards hadn't come out yet, and that was just enough to bump them out. But for a bunch of rookies, essentially, and Joe, who's not a rookie, they did super well, and I was very proud of them. Good job.
And one last thing, I'm Gavin, I'm the vice president, I'm a sophomore. Last year was my first year. I want to give you guys a perspective of what it's like for the students who join Robotics Club. For us, we learn a lot about a lot of skills in general, life skills. Like, you'd think it would just be a lot of robotics, but there's a lot of other things that happen behind the scenes. Here at Robotics Club, we work on, there's engineering, obviously, and design aspects and team building, but there's also aspects of community outreach and team design and coordination and fundraising and travel and all that sorts of things that you really need to learn to move on in your life, and this club really provides a great opportunity to learn those things. I've only had one entire year of experience. This is my second year almost, but we worked a lot this year on teaching everybody some new life skills so that we could have a better team foundation for next year, because we were such a rookie team. And genuinely, it's a really good time. I always have a lot of fun here. But that's about it.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, and that's going to bring us to, we have the approval of the minutes and agenda as well as our consent agenda. Any objection to the approval of minutes from from March 20th, and agenda and consent agenda. All right, hearing no objection, we'll consider those approved. That is going to bring us to the public comments portion of the meeting. And we have two methods for public comments, both in person as well as virtual. And for in-person public comments, you use the sign-up sheet that was provided right at the front as you came in. So if you have not had the opportunity to sign up, go ahead and do so now. And the other method would be live virtual public comments, and you would do that by using the raise hand feature. For those of you who are attending via Zoom, you should have a raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. And we will do the best to call on you in the order that you raised your hand. And I will be alternating from in-person public comments to live virtual public comments. Each individual does have up to 3 minutes for public comments. And the maximum allotted time for public comments per the agenda is 30 minutes. If we exceed the 30 minutes, then the board can decide if they want to make adjustments to that. In the interest of time, order, and respect to others, we want to mention it's not appropriate for complaints or charges about employees to be mentioned during public comment. These issues are best addressed to the superintendent in writing. The board superintendent or district personnel typically do not engage in direct conversation or give feedback during public comments, and those addressing the board may be referred to staff to follow up at a later date if needed. Board action is discussed, and that is discussed is limited to previously published agenda topics, and we do ask that you please state your name, address, and an affiliation if you have one before making public comments. And so with that, if you would, and for our in-person public comments, we'll ask you to head right up to the silver table there with the microphone, and please use the microphone for public comments because it's easier for the folks who are attending virtually to hear your public comments as well if you're using the microphone. I will say that we have a quorum here for board directors, but we do have one of our board members attending virtually, so it will be important for her potentially to hear public comments as well as the public board attending. So with that, I am going to, looks like our first person is Teresa. Oh, also, there's 3 minutes, but Director Jeffries here will hold this up when you have about 30 seconds left, and that just kind of gives you the cue to sort of kind of wrap up your last comments. So, then you may need. Sounds like it's good.
I'm gonna be quick. I'm totally against the reconfiguration plan. I do have a first grader who will be altered in this. You're gonna move her out to Gray Wolf for 1 year and then take her back to Holler where she's been at her whole life. Remind you, my kid is in middle school too. She walks my kid to school, she picks my kid up from school. It's like a routine we have going. I just feel like you guys are gonna mess a lot of people up. I am so nervous. I do not talk in front of people and I'm shaking. But that's all I wanted to say. I just feel like blindsided, and I also feel like this has all been real hush-hush. And I think a lot more parents would be more on board with it had it been more announced in the general public. Like, there's still a lot of people who have no clue what's going on.
Thank you. Now we have Bradley, who's attending virtually for a public comment.
Yeah, you guys got me here? Yeah, so I wanted to bring up that there's a lot of people that have lived in this area for a long time, and I grew up going to Gray Wolf, And, you know, for the location of Clallam County, you guys are asking families to uproot their schedules, their daily routines, and you're doing it almost forcefully, is how we feel, and at no real expense to our feelings and our families. You know, we have a daughter that goes to Grey Wolf, and we live in Agnew, and we choose to go to Grey Wolf because it's close. And she is in kindergarten, so we have 2 more years. So you're asking us to drive our child farther away, you know, and uproot our schedules, but at the same time, according to your guys's reconfiguration, financially it makes no sense, because now you're going to have to do bus routes, and a lot of parents, their kids, when they're that young, they can't necessarily, you know, it's a lot of work to get a kid on a bus, and a lot of parents are going to choose to drive their children, and now you're asking parents to eat that cost at what you guys feel should be right. We as a community, some people may be for it, but a lot of us are against it because it's worked for at least 20, 30 years since I've been around. And we all feel as though you are forcing something on us that none of us want, with no real benefits. This community has never been against funding for schools, and we understand that it's economically a crunch, but financially your numbers don't make sense. And at the cost of the parents and the families to uproot what they have been doing and what has been working for them. And now you're asking them to change everything to someone that came in last year and decided they want to change the whole system, start laying teachers off, when you guys have a pocket full of administrators, you know, that you could eliminate 2 of their jobs and save those teachers' jobs as well. The teachers teach our children, not the administrative staff. And school is about function and routine, and you guys are completely destroying that function and routine for a lot of families. And that's was my biggest thing, is that you're making more work for a lot of the parents and separating where we decide we want our children to go and forcing it on to where that you think they should go. That's all I have to say, and I don't know how to exit. I think I just hit mute.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Brad. Okay, the next person is Christine. You may have to.
Hi, I'm Chris McDougall Danielson. I teach first grade at Helen Haller. And my concern is you're putting all the kindergartners, first graders, and second graders in one location. And those are our most needy learners. And the time of the, I'm nervous like you. I talk to kids all day. At Haller, oh, it's gone. At Heller, we're able to do reading remediation with all kindergartners and first graders in the morning hours when they're fresh. And kindergartners take a lot of time, and I'm not saying anything bad about kindergartner. I mean, they need the time. They need that time, and I want them to have that time because I get them the next year. But if you have 8 classes of kindergartner, 1/3 of your school is kindergartners. That leaves less time for your first graders for reading remediation. And my reading remediation that's where my heart goes out to those kids that need the help. And at Haller, we do it in the morning while the kids are fresh. We have all the first graders and the kindergartners get their remediation in the morning. There's one more thing I was going to say about that. I know how to solve the problem 2 ways. One is you hire more people to give for those things, but we don't have the money to do that. I mean, if we're really gonna do this system, it needs more money than we have now, because we're gonna go out there with less money. Or the other thing is, the way to solve it is just to keep it the way it is, because we have a solution right now for it. And quick little, we had to move our classes a couple years ago to rip out the carpeting, and they put linoleum tiles down. And I had to move all my stuff out and put it out in the hallway. And where is she? Teachers have a lot of stuff. I didn't have to move anything from my cupboards or under the sink area or my drawers, but I used 87 boxes.
Next, we have Laura attending the meeting virtually. Laura? Should be able to unmute.
Yep, I'm here. Thank you so much to our school board members. I really appreciate all the time that you guys give to our community. I know you don't get paid a dime, and I just want to say thank you. I know this is a contentious issue. My name is Laura Updike. I am a mother of 6, and I currently have 5 in the school district. I'll have another one next year. I think something that's lost in this discussion that needs to be brought up is that research shows, and there's one thing that is best, the best predictor for how well a student will learn. That's the skill set of the teacher. Researchers have looked at all different things that they can do to try to improve student learning. It comes down almost entirely to the skill set of the teacher, more than how good an administrator is, how good a support person is, or anything else. This fact matters in this discussion because teachers don't gain skills by moving to a different classroom or by moving furniture. Students don't automatically just learn more. Nothing's magical about moving people around. And the research shows that there's no magical grade configuration. If you want to improve learning, you've got to work on your teacher's skill set and give them time to collaborate, recruit good teachers, train good teachers, etc. And we have really good teachers here in Sequim. I'm thankful for that. I understand that Superintendent Nichols has worked in a system like the one she's proposing, so maybe that's comfortable for her, but there isn't research to back up that this is going to improve our academic achievement. Even she admits that it's going to go temporarily down. Now, maybe some kids are going to pop back up. I hope so, but you know what? We've already had a lot of learning loss from the pandemic, and you just pile that on, disruption after disruption after disruption. It's just pretty obvious that this is not a good idea. Also, we don't have any logistical reason to do this. Usually it's done when they have to close a school because they don't have enough students, and it's just a logistical reality that they have to move kids, or maybe they are growing so fast that they've got to open up another building and put a few kids in there or whatever. People do this because they have to, not because they want to, just for fun. Most important, another important point is that parents in our school district are feeling really mistrustful of our school system. I don't know if people who don't have kids in the school system really quite understand. We feel our trust of our administrators is really low because of the many COVID policies that didn't seem to be in the interest of our students, didn't seem to be research-based. Also because of the numerous lawsuits that we've dealt with, our trust is low, and we don't feel like the administration is hearing families or representing our interests as they should. And I really hope that our school board will speak for us. You are our voice. And it's clear that the teachers don't want this, the parents don't want this. I hope that you will help Superintendent Nichols redirect her towards a different solution, because this is not a solution and it's just going to make our community trust decrease. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Laura. Next, we have Sherry.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hello. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, all right. It's... Oh, now you can hear me. All right. People think I'm a mic junkie, but I'm really not. Dear board members, the initial plan to Before I start, I wanted to let you know I'm reading for Gray Wolf staff tonight. The initial plan to move the elementary to pre-K to 3 to 5 was proposed as a budget saver. After seeing that that was not the case, almost within a day, it was then proposed as good for the students. This plan concerns teachers involved because we don't see the facts or the empirical data to support it. Our last 15 years or more of teaching have been focused on facts and data academically to make sure that our students are ready to move on to the next grade successfully. Yet, you are willing to flip the students, parents, and teachers' lives, these school lives, upside down for an idea that will be good for the students. We have no evidence of this change, and once we go there, once we make this move, we don't get to move back. This will happen, and there's no undoing of it. We teachers embrace change yearly, if not daily, adjusting lessons, realigning curriculum, innovative ideas on how to engage students and work with behaviors and different learning styles. Look at what the teachers did during COVID. In one day, we were told we were shutting down our schools. In the next 2 days, our principal had us up and working on Canvas for online learning. That was at pretty much a moment's notice is how we felt. Change is not what worries us. We can deal with change. It's changes without a good cause that does worry us. COVID was a change that we had no choice in, and it affected our students socially and academically, and it's already set them back 2 years. Why voluntarily choose to make a change that can possibly have some of the same side effects? We can't just wrap our brains around this decision. We've talked and we've talked and we've talked, and we do not understand it. These kids finally have had a full year of consistent schooling with stability, and now you want to change it on them. It would be different if this plan saves our budget and increases scores. However, none of this has been shown to be possible. There's no data to prove it, even leaning in the direction that this is possible. With this, why would we even consider this plan this year or the next year to come? As teachers, how will this affect what we do in the classroom? It's still mostly the same teachers, still the same curriculum, still the same students, yet moving them to a new school or classroom or staying, does that mean, oh nuts, hold on. Well, this is what's so confusing to us. I want to end it on this, if I may, my ending statement. A leader once told us, we can all work hard together, but in different directions, pulling, we will get nowhere. Like a team of horses pulling a wagon, but pulling from all sides. If we want to make a difference and be effective, we need to all be pulling in the right direction. Simply stated, we all need to be for this, and we are overwhelmingly not for this.
And I'm not seeing any other folks wishing to speak virtually, so I'm going to go to our next in-person. And Justin?
How's it going, everyone? Justin Withrow. I have a child, kindergarten, age 6. So I looked at your budget plan, and I looked at the budgeting that's out on the internet, and we found that budget cuts is the reason we want to move. A move of this magnitude, I would venture to guess, would be around 100,000. By the time it's all said and done, teachers have a lot of stuff, right? It doesn't help with any of the students. We had COVID, set everybody back. I mean, there's kids that I'm trying to hire right now that have no social skills, no word programs. They don't get it. So moving them is not going to help, right? It definitely won't help my son. It definitely won't help a lot of sons. In that budget, I found that we have a $46 million budget. We lost $3.2 million worth of budgeting. There's 6.6 that we have spent on hired services. Now, I know that we have a great community, and if there is somewhere that we can cut out of that, or if we can look at our finances and cut some, maybe we can look out to the community. Is someone willing to come help? Because I know I am. Call us. I'll come out here. I know my wife will. I know everybody. I mean, there's tons of people in the room that I know. If we needed security cameras, I know how to pull wire. I don't know how to wire, I mean, I know how to do basic wire system, but you're a community, you gotta look at, this is SQUIM. There are business owners, business leaders, there's tons of people out here that are willing to give out a hand. But if you go and knock them down and tell them, hey, we're moving schools, sorry, you're gonna lose half of your support. You know, I don't know, I don't have much more to say. I just know that almost everybody I've talked to about this is against it, and I feel that there is another way, and it's not to help the kids. We wanna help our kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Frank?
Good evening. I'm kind of off a different subject. I'm here to comment and compliment the staff of DBS. We have a granddaughter we've been raising, and the last few years through the regular school and so on, it's been a nightmare. The Skyward is just a terrible thing to try to work through. You can't get progress reports. And I understand the teachers are busy. They don't get them posted like they should, so it's hard to tell when parents are looking at it and they question the student. They say, well, you're behind on your studies, and they say, no, we're not. We have changed to the DVS, and we love it. It has brought our granddaughter back to a high standard, and I'd recommend it. And I'm hearing rumors that there's going to be changes in the system there, and I'm sure hoping there isn't. So sorry to change subjects on you, but thank you very much.
Okay, and I think that is all that we have for folks signed up.
No.
Oh, wait, oh, there's another page, sorry. Well, there's not check marks, but there's things written, so I think, David Updike?
Thank you, school board members, for having public comments. And thank you for all the time you've spent on this. I can only imagine 5 to 10 hours a week has ballooned over the last few weeks or month or so. I really appreciate you kind of dealing with a seasonal part-time job with this building reconfiguration. Also, thank you for being our voice. We don't get to vote on this as regular citizens. We're relying on you to hear our voice and to be our elected representatives who will figure out what the community members want and what is best for students and families. A few weeks ago, I spoke at the budget planning meeting quite passionately against this proposal to reconfigure our schools. It may have seemed frustrated, it may have seemed over the top to some, I don't know, but the reason I spoke passionately against the proposal is because as a school psychologist, I work day in and day out with students that have disabilities and who have trauma. I am tasked with trying to help put together a team and come up with plans, and I don't do it all. We work as a team and we wrap around a student in order to help them. It's parents, it's teachers, it's paraeducators, it's many specialists and others that are helping these students to have stability and supports. So these kids are on my mind, who are on the margins. They are our village children. We raise them as a village because they need stability and resources from all of us. I'm representing those families again tonight who are not in a position to advocate for themselves, and I represent young children who cannot be here to advocate for themselves. I understand that board members come from all walks of life, you do have to learn some things about education and teaching, I'm sure. So as an educator for the last couple of decades, I have a specialist degree from Seattle University. I learned to be a school psychologist. One of the main things I left there with was I was taught, you need to ask the question, what does research already say about this? You don't need to reinvent the wheel, you need to know what we already know about this. So that's what I learned there. And then when I went to the University of Washington Danforth program and obtained a leadership degree, one of the main things I left there with was, if you want something, don't get tunnel vision. Think about the means and the ends. They both matter. And I know that we all want to be lifelong learners, continually trying to learn more. I'm sure you've been doing your own homework as board members on this. I want to share with you, to end, a little bit of preponderance of evidence based on everything I know. I've learned through my professional experience and in researching this specific proposal that I'm 100% convinced that this change will not help children one tiny bit. It will cause harm to some of our most vulnerable children. We have wonderful school communities that are intact and functioning well now. I've worked at both elementary schools. I've had children attend both elementary schools. They are wonderful. Please let them be functional as they are. They are already trying to get out of a pandemic, which has caused learning loss. If our main goal is to find something innovative to creatively increase academic achievement, researchers like Michael Fullen, John Hattie, Craig Howley, and others have spent their lives working on this. They do not have this reconfiguration on a single list for what is good for students, and they do have it on an adverse impact list for some of them. To end, I will quote Craig Howley, who in the early 2000s became very fascinated with this trend from the 1990s of reconfiguring schools exactly the way we're talking about. He concluded with his research for several years, students in rural communities and or students that were disadvantaged benefited from remaining in one school over a long period of time, and it led to higher graduation rates. Thank you.
Next, we have Justin. Justin Whitaker.
Oh, that was me. Maybe I took another Justin's spot.
Oh, okay.
Is there
another Justin that signed up? Oh, no, looks like you're on here twice. Okay.
I just wanted to be heard.
Well, we got you covered. Anna Davis.
Hello, I just want to, I don't have a lot to say, so I won't take the entire 3 minutes. I just wanted to take this opportunity first and foremost to thank all of the SQUIM school district teachers. My kids are now 24, 22, and 19, and they came through the SQUIM school district most of those years. My older two were not in elementary school, but I really hope that these SQUIM teachers will, be heard what their preferences are, because they go above and beyond, even for the normal above and beyond that most teachers do, that they're not paid for, and they truly care about these students. So I feel that their opinions are the voice of the students, and I hope that they will be trusted with that. My point that I would like to make tonight is that as a student studying elementary education at WGU, I've studied about the different developmental stages. And so my point tonight is from that approach, considering, I just would like to put that out there in case this has not already been a conversation. I just want to invite the board into conversation about developmental stages for elementary school kids. So the specific one that I'm referring to is not the pre-operational stage, which would be under age 7. It would be from age 7 to adolescence. And that stage, the task is industry versus inferiority. And with industry, that just means that their number one developmental task to accomplish at that age, from 7 to adolescent, industry is all about their relationships with peers, relationships with teachers, relationships with siblings, their relationship with themselves, with their community, and I think that, I feel strongly that you would take that away from them to have diversity in those relationships by separating those grades. My kids also grew up down in a school district in Bay Area, California, in at Murray Elementary School, where they were in a program within the public school called Pathways. It was one classroom of 40 students, ages kindergarten through 3rd grade, but then eventually expanded to 5th grade. And I saw learning take place in the most natural way that children learn, where they are reinforcing learning by teaching younger kids. Kindergartners are sitting, in circle time, watching how older kids behave, and I just ask that you not take that, diversity in relationships away from them. And I just want to say thank you again to SQUEM school district teachers. You guys are angels. I hope that however you want this to go is the way that it goes.
Thank you, Anna. And let's just make sure. I believe that is all we have.
I signed up to comment on the first page, the bottom there.
Okay. Oh yeah, there's a spot where you check. So, Joe, do you want to go ahead?
Sure.
Okay.
I brought props. My name is Joe Vandaway, and I'm the parent of 4 children in the district. As I've mentioned previously, I believe that Superintendent Nichols has students' best interest at heart. I do not doubt that she genuinely believes that the reconfiguration of the elementary schools is best for students. I'm speaking tonight not because I necessarily oppose the reconfiguration of the 2 elementary schools, but because I stand opposed to claims which are not supported by evidence. And I quote, "The idea of an elementary configuration will save our district between $875,000 to $1.2 million. End quote. This is Superintendent Nichols, which is currently posted on the school district homepage. There is no evidence to support this statement. If this much money could be saved through reconfiguring the schools, every district in Washington state would be doing it. In fact, we should send this headline across every platform to as many districts as possible because we've just solved a lot of financial problems. But we're not doing this because the claim is not true. As previously mentioned with data that I've also previously shared, the cost savings or cost reduction is achieved not through the elementary configuration, but through the reduction of staff, which could just as easily be implemented in a traditional model. Let me be clear, the mechanism for achieving the savings we're speaking of is reduction in staff, not reconfiguration. In fact, reconfiguring the schools will bring an additional cost to the district of at least $50,000 or more, and this is using their data. The rectangle here represents the traditional model with our current elementary school staffing of 50 teachers. We can remove a portion of that, which represents 6 teachers or about 12%. The circle here represents the reconfigured model, different shape, same area. In that reconfigured model, we can cut the same piece out. It's the same savings in either model. The same portion is removed from both models. The same cost savings is achieved in both models. The overage pay is the same number in both models. That is apples to apples, not the slide that was presented in the budget forum, because there is no savings here. Instead of stating that reconfiguring the schools will save our district so much money, $1.2 million, we could say that providing a 4-hour recess for students every day saves $1.2 million. Or assigning A's to every student each year saves $1.2 million. Or my favorite, giving teachers catered lunches every day saves $1.2 million. You get the point. There's no evidence to support the claim that the district has made. In all seriousness, I find the claim to be absolutely and completely false. I propose that we consider the reconfiguration proposal on its own merit and that we divorce it from the budget savings discussion. Since it doesn't save any money, there's no need to rush this proposal through. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, you have a difficult decision to make tonight. Will you support a well-intentioned, hardworking superintendent who has made a big political misstep? Or will you support the students, parents, staff, and community members who have made it clear that this is not what they want right now? I hope you listen to your constituents and you choose the latter. And when you think about other ways to save the district money, please consider daily catered lunches for teachers.
stealth.
I am. I did, in fact, sign up. It might just be.
No worries, no worries.
There's a lot of people. And before I begin, before my time begins, I've brought someone so I can yield 3 minutes of my time. So I'll be taking just under 6 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, and I can confirm my mother is here to yield her time, and she has also signed up.
Hi.
What's your name?
Oh, hi, my name is Ruby Colson. I'm a senior at Swim High School. I am the senior class president. I have a 3.9 GPA, 4.4 weighted, for those of you who are interested. I will graduate with 31 credits, essentially a fifth-year senior. I've taken almost every AP class that the district has offered. I'm heavily involved in many of the clubs at the school. In fact, I'm an officer in 3 of them, involved in over 6, and have actually started one this year. Mock Trial Club. I'm passionate. I wrote and presented nationally recognized workshops on equity, inclusion, and justice that I have presented in Washington, D.C. to the 4-H Healthy Living Conference. I was the 4-H State Teen Leader of the Year last year. I have instituted legislation in the Washington State Legislature that's actively in practice about student mental health. I am attending Stanford University this fall. I have attended swim schools for 12 years. Every few years, an exceptional student comes through and they get accepted into amazing universities or hundreds of thousands of scholarship dollars. Except there are dozens of students that could be considered exceptional by my standards. This plan to realign will stifle student success. The district says that the deficit will be kept as far away from students as possible, but advanced classes are already being cut, and these elementary schoolers will suffer. The highly capable program is already highly underfunded, and the teachers are frustrated from a lack of resources. Students know when teachers are unhappy and can tell when their classes are at risk. This plan risks unnecessary disruption for students who are already struggling, all under the guise of budget cuts where teachers are on the chopping block, regardless of whether we do the realignment. To my experiences, starting in kindergarten, I was put aside and told that my intelligence was, quote, a good problem to have. I was placed in the gifted program in 3rd grade only after I spent a year in hallways alone, coloring, because I learned the content faster than my peers. I was pulled out of class to do more advanced work periodically, but more than anything, I was extremely, suffocatingly bored. I needed experienced teachers, willing and able to step out of cookie-cutter curriculum. Many of them here today, shout out you guys. They need to understand the steps to take and how to support students like me and many, many others, which requires knowledge only gained through experience. Middle school was supposed to be better, and the honors classes did improve my experience slightly, but the time I was in 8th grade, I still had that same hope that high school would be better. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. Not to mention, these honors classes are allegedly on the chopping block in order to cut expenses. I wasn't allowed to adjust my schedule to accommodate more advanced classes, and when my family begged to accommodate this, the now ex-principal simply handed my mom a box of tissues. If you cut honors programs at the middle school, you eliminate the pipeline for motivated and driven students, taking away the vital foundation of education that will handicap their ability to pursue their dreams post-high school, whether that's Stanford or anywhere else. These students will not be competitive nationally. I do not have a unique story. Every one of my friends has a story of being pushed down and ignored and having their needs unmet, and often starting in elementary school. A teacher comes along every once in a while and gives us more support, but often at the expense of their own needs. These teachers need support too. Otherwise, we will lose these talented teachers, forcing new teachers fresh out of college into extreme burnout, losing more teachers. Disruption is not an improved education tactic, especially so recently after COVID disruption. Now is not the time to do a realignment. I'm here today because hundreds of students will come through this school that are far more exceptional than I am, and they will not have the opportunities that are given to me if this realignment occurs. They will not attend competitive and elite universities or receive financial education to attend the university of their dreams like I have. They will be told they are not good enough like I have, and that they cannot compete with students from Bellevue and Issaquah and the Seattle Public Schools. I want this school to come to terms with the fact that students from SQUIM can be competitive, because we are talented, and we can get accepted anywhere we want, regardless of where that is. A strong education starts with a strong elementary education. Eliminating tenured teachers in order to hire 2 new fresh teachers who are less experienced may be a reasonable budget cut, but it impacts students who benefit from differentiation and hands-on support. This realignment strategy is ineffective in saving money. Shout out Mr. Vanderway for saying that for me. If you're doing this to improve student well-being and education, just say that. But it appears not to. Most parents and community members don't even want this. Most teachers don't even want this. The realignment plan for elementary schools is, I believe, simply as a student, short-sighted. And the reduction of services, classroom, and curriculum is an even bigger problem that the budget will have to face. I understand changes need to be made. I'm not unaware of that. But if you truly stand by the statement that the cuts will be the furthest away from the students, I implore you to find a better solution. As much as we need cuts, we also need a new income source. We need to build and improve our community from the bottom up. We haven't passed a bond in so long. We need that money. This plan of realignment will not achieve it. Thank you so much for your time and your consideration. I hope that my experiences will influence your decision today. Thank you.
Thanks, congratulations on staying. Okay. Is there anyone else who signed up intending for public comment? Okay. Anybody else attending virtually that need to use the raise hand function for public comment? Go ahead and raise hand now. I'm not seeing any. Okay, we will go ahead and close that portion of the meeting. We want to thank those who took time to speak, and we are going to move on to get back on track. We're going to move on to our student board representative reports, and we do have the star here. Welcome.
Hello everyone. I hope you all had a good spring break. First, I want to say once again congratulations to our mock trial club. In their first ever year of competing, they made it all the way to the state competition. They competed beautifully against other schools that have been competing for many years. This new club at SHS is among our most popular. SHS is proud of the mock trial club. Another club that did amazing was our HOSA club. 2 students qualified for the national competition in Dallas, Carrie Olsen and Ruby Colson. Congratulations, HOSA club and national qualifiers. ASB elections for student government are wrapping up here at the high school. Elections for next year's ASB will happen soon. Then the planning for next year comes. The SHS junior class is hosting All School Prom on April 22nd from 7 to 10 p.m. in the high school cafeteria. The theme is disco. The junior class has worked hard on creating a great dance experience for all students. It will be great. The Career Explore Fair was very successful, as all students got to experience a feeling of what they might be doing in the future. It was helpful because it made the students think about who and what they wanted to be doing, and it gave them a chance to connect with people of different experiences. Class registration is happening for next year this week and the next week at the high school. The amount of electives offered to students, especially those electives that lead directly to careers in industry, is really impressive. Thank you all. That's all I have for you today.
Okay, and Caleb was not able to join us tonight, and he had a prior engagement. And that's going to bring us to our report section of the meeting. We do have our counselor presentation.
Good evening. I thought that you all came to see us, and I was really excited. So I'm going to choose to continue to believe that. And I was very invested in the high school. So thank you. So my name is Malie Vandervelde, and I'm one of the counselors at Squim High School. And with me is Sarah Thorson and Sarah Brooks. I'm not a Sarah, but that's okay. And we make up the counseling team at Squim High School. So this little graphic kind of explains a little bit about what counselors do. They do a lot. So we do a lot of advocacy, we do a lot of kind of support, social emotional support, academic support. We do crisis counseling when needed. So we collaborate with each other, we provide leadership for the team, they'll contribute to the administrative team with leadership. So there's a lot of work that we do in the counseling department that's really foundational to providing the best comprehensive system we can for our students. So we kind of split it into 3 categories because that's how the ASCA model kind of organizes counselors. So we have our academic domain, our social emotional domain, and our career domain. So our goals academically are to support our students on their path towards graduation. Our function is to create a place where students can graduate and have success in their 4 years here at the high school. Socially, emotionally, we want to create a safe environment for our students, both in their social interactions with each other and then in their emotional state on our campus. And then in our career domain, we want to ensure that all students have a plan after graduation that they're excited about and that they're prepared for that plan. Some plans are going to Stanford, which is amazing. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the academic domain. So these are some of the things that we do to help our students with their academics. We monitor their progress towards graduation, so we're making sure that they're taking the right classes in the right categories so that they meet Washington standards for graduation. We help create curriculum that's presented in homeroom to kind of guide them on their path towards academic success. We provide one-on-one counseling for students to talk about what their options are, what classes might best fit their needs. We help them advocate with their teachers if they're struggling. We also bring in parents sometimes to help with those processes. We work with transfer students that come to us, like we just had a student today from Jamaica. So we kind of assess those transcripts and make sure that they're matching what they need for Washington State. We facilitate staffing meetings, so that's when parents come in to meet with teachers and students and come up with a plan if a student's not being successful. We coordinate 504 meetings. We work with students on credit recovery, and we participate in IEP meetings. So those are all some of the things we do to help support our students academically. Some fun data. It's not actually that fun. So this shows kind of where our graduation rates are right now. And it's a little bit concerning. These are cohort data, so it's data that started with them as freshmen and followed them all the way through 4 years to graduating. So it's the freshman class, 4 years prior is the data that we get when they're seniors. So obviously it shows a pretty big dip. I do think that has a lot to do with COVID. I think we're still really feeling the effects of that. And I think students kind of, like all of us, were rocked by that and lost their way a little bit, and we're struggling to find our way back. So right now, so the data at the bottom is not cohort data. That is just data for this year's senior class. But I can tell you that we have 159 of our seniors are on track, and as long as they don't have a huge senioritis moment, they should make it to graduation. We have 16 that are like, oh, we feel like they're gonna pull through. We're hoping, we're spending a lot of time talking to them about ways we can make sure they do that. And then we have 10 that we are sure are going to be coming back next year as fifth-year seniors. So when you're looking at the next slide, oh, it's not on there. Man, oh, there we go, okay. Go back one, forward one, there we go, okay. So this data it looks like a lot of colorful bars, but it really does show the 4, 5, 6, and 7 year data. So a lot of students aren't going to graduate in 4 years for a variety of reasons. It could be that they've had a massive trauma in their life. It could be that they have special needs that just require them to be at school a little bit longer. It could be that they had a huge disaster their senior year and an upset that they weren't expecting, and they just didn't quite make it in those 4 years. We really try to destigmatize the 5th and 6th year seniors because our goal is for all of our students to graduate. I don't really care if you graduate in 4 years or 5 years or 6 years. I just want you to come away from this place with a diploma and feel really good about what your options are after high school. So this just kind of lays that out for you, that while we don't always catch everybody in the 4 years, we work really hard to make sure we catch as many as we can in the 5th, 6th, and even 7th year. Okay, social motion.
On this slide, you'll see a variety of things that we do in the realm of social emotional. Some of those are providing one-on-one crisis counseling to students as needed. Others is create safety plans for students. So if we have a student who may have had suicidal ideations or attempted suicide, we want to make sure that they're coming back to school safe with a plan, and so we can move forward from there and they can get a good education as well as getting the supports that they need. We meet regularly with students, so this is something we do on a daily basis, either with daily check-ins with certain students, weekly check-ins, or just if a student is having a bad day and they need some extra support, that's one thing that we're there for. Another thing we do is we work with our building administration team to come up with social emotional lesson plans that are presented to all students in their homeroom classes. Right now, one curriculum that we're using is Character Strong to help kind of build upon that to make sure that all those needs are met and students are getting that curriculum that's appropriate at their level. Also, one really neat thing that we have right now is a grant that we have from Clallam County. It's out of Clallam County Health and Human Services that we've had, this is our third round of it, but it's the second year in a row where we are able through that grant to provide mental health counseling to students that's paid for through the grant. So on there you'll see that currently 27 students have been served this year by we have 3 community mental health therapists that are contracted through this grant, and we're able to kind of give that opportunity to students to really mitigate the barriers that they can face just trying to find that support within the community. And with that, we also provide we're that community liaison for other students who may need mental health supports or other counseling supports within the community, or any additional supports such as like the food bank, clothing, and any kind of like health clinic, crisis lines. We help kind of be that liaison to provide those supports and resources and referrals to those students. We also have a student assistant professional who is working through the ESD, and he is able to provide support and services for group counseling and be kind of a student advocate for those students. So those 2 additional supports on top of us as a counseling team has been really beneficial for our students at the high school. And then one other thing is we are the building point of contact for McKinney-Vento and foster care students. So we're able to help be that immediate contact here at the high school to help ensure that they have the resources they need and those needs are being met as quick as possible. Okay, and on this slide you'll see kind of some fun data that we got through a survey that we provided to all students in their homeroom classes. So these are students 9 through 12, and of the 306 students who completed this survey, you'll see here 82% of the students responded having a trusted adult on campus. 85% of students felt kind of a feeling of being safe on campus, and then 70.5% of our students reported feeling very or somewhat emotionally safe. So although these numbers aren't perfect, they are kind of a baseline for us to grow upon and kind of just continue to put those additional supports in place so we can, with the goal of increasing these numbers. That's our goal, is to increase this and ensure that those supports are in place and we're meeting the students' needs kind of where they are at the high school.
I'm Sarah Brooks, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the career domain and what we do there. So one thing is supporting students with their future plans, so that can include college applications. There's a lot that goes into applying to schools and knowing there were different requirements and competitiveness and different things like that. So we support students with that. Also coordinating with community members to provide additional career exploration. This year we were able to do the Career Expo on March 28th, and I just want a quick side note. I love that I get to work in a district where I have an idea and I want to do something big, and I talk to my principal and she's like, yeah. And I talk to the superintendent and she's like, yeah. And then they come up with, additional ideas that they can add to it. I love that. I love that I get to work in a place that inspires innovation. So I hope whatever happens in the future, we just continue to do that, whatever the case is. Sorry for that little side note, but also just coordinating with colleges and recruiters that come with military we're like different apprenticeship programs. We try to really get a lot of different people coming on our campus to talk to students that are interested in getting them thinking about what they're going to do after high school. Also, this year through the ESD, there's a couple positions in the community of financial aid counselors specifically. One's through Peninsula College, and one is through the United Way and library system. And so we've been able to really help students get support with financial aid in knowing that they can pay for college, how to pay for college, and get support in filling out the FAFSA application. Washington State, I think, is 48th, was ranked 48th in all the states for completed FAFSA. So our state is really looking to improve that. So these positions have really been helpful in that. Also just helping students to know about the scholarships. We have a community who donates a lot of money and wants to support our graduates. So helping students know about that. And then PSAT for students who are interested in taking the SAT in the future, and also just continuing to improve our high school and beyond plan. This is a requirement in Washington State for seniors to complete a high school and beyond plan. To graduate, you have to complete a high school and beyond plan. And so we're kind of working backwards in making sure that we're implementing things starting at 7th grade, at 8th grade, at 9th grade. You know, how can we get kids thinking about their future early? Yeah, let me go to the next slide. Okay, so this year, one of my goals was to really try to have an individual meeting with each senior. So I met with almost every senior. And these are including DVS students and Running Start students when I was able to. So this kind of shows overall, so this is over 95% of our student body. I forget the exact number that I didn't get to, but it's a very small number. And some of those meetings would look like, hey, I'm applying to this university, I know exactly where I want to go. Yep, I'm applying to 4-year, yep, I've got everything I need. Or I'm enlisting in the military, no question, you know. Or several 30-minute meetings coming back, reading over essays, answering application questions. So it can look very different for different students. And we really I tried to show that in the data that I took of what students said their plans are, because we all know that people change their plans. And when you're in your last year of high school, sometimes your intention is to do something, and then a couple months go by and those intentions change. So I tried to capture that, but I think it's pretty cool that 68% of our students are trying to applying for going to a 2-year or 4-year school, so continuing their education. And then you can see the breakdown from there. And we hope to just continue to support students so that they can see all the opportunities they have and encourage them in that. And yeah. Some of the other just extra things that we do within the counseling department is holding parent nights. We just recently had a 9th through 11th parent night. We have an 8th grade parent night coming up soon. We also house AP coordination. So Ms. Vanderveld currently is the AP coordinator and does all that testing stuff. We assist a lot with SBA and state testing. We also hold new student orientations and coordinate fall and spring senior letters being sent out, which helps seniors and their parents to know whether they're on track or not and what needs to be done to get them there. And then registration. Currently, today, we did draft forms for registration for choosing classes next year. So on the 13th, they'll be filling out their final forms on the computer. And then middle school is happening towards the end of the month, and DVS and OP we also have scheduled. And then also master schedule building as kids, as students choose classes that they're signing up for, then figuring out how that looks in our scheduling next year.
All right, so you just heard kind of the 3 domains and the variety of different things that we cover in our counseling program. One thing that this is falling into right now is a K-12 comprehensive school counseling program, which was mandated via Senate Bill 5030, mandating that all school districts have a comprehensive K-12 counseling program. And we've been working for over a year to kind of build that, and it's a work in progress, and we always want to refine and get better. But the goal of that is having consistency and having a foundation where our students are getting services and these 3 domains are being covered K-12. We don't want just a 9-12 program and a 6-8 program. We want to ensure that the same terminology and that same consistency is being taught to our students K-12, so they're best set up for success when they leave us and their needs are being met throughout their time here within our school district. So our goal is aligning those services, providing our students with a comprehensive counseling program that gives them the foundation that they need to reach their highest potential. And as was mentioned previously, ultimately we want to set our students up for success when they leave here and have a plan and kind of ensuring that their needs are fully met. And so we've been working to do that through this program and ensure that at each level our students have kind of that foundation and it continues to build through their time here at K-12.
Almost done, last slide. Okay, so moving forward, we know that we need to continue to focus on making sure we have our grad stats are better, and that as we're moving away from COVID, we are ensuring more of our students are reaching that goal of getting to graduation. So we're going to continue to work on that and work on credit recovery options. We're also going to continue to expand our career and college program. So this year we kind of made a big decision in the counseling department. We originally all split the alphabet 3 ways, and we have, I don't know, 743 students per our last count. But then we lost, so last year we lost our college and career advisor, Mitzi Sanders, probably a lot of you know her name. And we wanted to continue that program and make it as robust and meaningful for our students as possible. So we kind of shifted our priorities, well, not shifted our priorities, but we shifted the way things were gonna run. And so Sarah Thorson and I split the alphabet down the middle, which left Sarah Brooks the opportunity to really focus on college and career and how to expand that. And I have to say, hats off. You've done an amazing job, and I am so grateful that she's been able to focus so much attention on that. I really think that's been a great way for us to open up doors for students that we might not have had the opportunity to do that with so many hats that we wear. It's nice for her to be able to really focus on that. We really want to push forward on providing all of our students K-12 with the best possible comprehensive program that they can. So we would love to, I know that we're in a budget deficit, so talking about increasing staff is never a great idea, but I just want to continue to advocate for the importance of credentialed counselors and what we can provide K-12 to our students. We, I think, are an integral part of what students experience and how complex and comprehensive that experience can be. So I'm just gonna put a little plug in there for counselors. And that, I think, is all we have, unless you guys have questions. Thank you so much for your attention.
Board members, any questions for council?
I was just going to say that I'm just so impressed with the dynamic nature of your program, that you are constantly thinking about ways to improve and ways to respond to the students in such a creative and positive way. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah, I attended the Career Expo, which we haven't had for a few years, and it was excellent. I talked to just about all the people that I could to that didn't have a big long line of students, and they all seemed to be really excited to be there, and some of the kids were really interested in what was going on. Some were just milling around, but like I told some of the exhibitors there, you don't know who's coming to your table, and just being there, picking up a flyer, 4 or 5 years from now, they may be working for you without knowing it. And the biggest joy of that day in particular was re-meeting a high school student that I had in biology back in the 90s, who now works out at the Pacific Northwest Marine Science Lab. So that was just made my day, in addition to everything else that was going on. It was fantastic.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate everything you do. That's going to bring us to our finance and enrollment report. Welcome, Burns.
I'll come up here so you can hear me.
Okay, we're gonna do budget status report for the month of March. So we'll go over our fund balance report, and this covers our 5 funds for the month of March, and goes over our revenues and expenditures in general fund, capital projects, debt service, ASB, and transportation. And so in the general fund, you'll see that revenues for the month of March were at $4,122,276, and expenditures for the month are $3,806,786, and our ending fund balance in the general fund for the month of March is $1,940,685. In capital projects, we are starting to receive a little bit of our capital levy money, and so that will increase in April and May as well. So our revenue for the month of March is $469,208, and just a little bit of expenditure, $97,464. So our balance right now in capital projects is $2,571,472. And in debt service fund, this is the fund that's just sitting here right now. If we were to have a bond, then we would use our debt service fund for those payments. And so it's just accumulating interest right now, and so that's at $71,767. Our ASB fund revenues for the month of March are $36,102, and expenditures $23,265. And so our ending fund balance is $444,028. And transportation vehicle fund is just accumulating interest right now, and it is to be used only for the purchase of buses or major repair of buses. And so we are putting together some bus orders, because as soon as our buses start coming off of the depreciation schedule, we need to make sure that we are prudent about having buses in place so that we are receiving depreciation payments for those buses. So our Director of Transportation is working on that right now. And as you can imagine, it's a little bit difficult to get buses right now, so it takes a much longer period of time to order a bus and have all of the specifications put on the bus that we need for our district. So you can have them built the way that you need them to be for our district. So we have $1,143,251 in transportation vehicle fund at this time. And so if we go on to the general fund activity report, it's just another way to look at what has happened for the month of March and compare it to the year. And actually in blue, then we can compare it to what happened last year in the same month. And so you'll see it just breaks it down in a different way of how our revenues were received in what if they came in through the state or through federal funds or local funds. And the same with expenditures is broken down so that you can see if we spent it in regular instruction, vocational, special ed, all those different funding ways that we pay for salary, benefits, and supplies and materials. And then our last report is the general fund expense summary report. And this one is more of just a summary. It breaks it down by just what I was talking about, expenditures by certificated salaries, classified salaries, our benefits that go along with those, our supplies and materials, purchase services, travel, and capital outlay. And so it just breaks it down in a different way, and you can see the bottom line numbers are the same in each of the reports. We do not have an enrollment report for the month of April because
Jennifer Cox just was asking for enrollment numbers today. It's our first day back in the month of April, so I'll have that for you at our next meeting, so you can see what April enrollment numbers look like.
Okay. Thank you.
Any questions?
Board members, any questions for Darlene? Thank you very much. And that's going to bring us to our superintendent report.
Okay, thank you very much. First off, I also want to give my congratulations to mock trial, and it was truly an exceptional season. Congratulations on getting that off the ground and to that extreme for the first year. What a maiden voyage. Also, my compliments to the Career Expo. I also attended the event and was able to walk around with a student and experience it from the student's point of view. And I will say this, all of the participants who came were so invested in making sure the experience was bringing students into their booth, being very accessible to students to ask questions and not be intimidated about things they don't know. And I think that people left having some sense of things that are out there close to home that are viable career pathways. So thank you not only to the staff members who came together to make it happen, but all of the community volunteers who came to run those booths. It was impressive. Also, I'd like to say that I had the pleasure of attending my first ever irrigation festival kickoff dinner. And I, being new to the community, have a lot to learn about different celebrations and so forth, but the irrigation festival certainly has so much historical value to it, the student participation in it. It was great to see the students there and be able to talk to them a bit. And once again, the community support around what that festival brings is absolutely fantastic. So I look forward to May and enjoying some of those events as well. I'd like to let everyone know that we will be hosting WSSDA Region 4 here on April 22nd. And WSSDA, of course, is our regional organization for making sure our school board is looking at legislative endeavors and advocating. And so we will be having, I was told, about 15 minutes where we can showcase our district. And so we'll be showcasing CTE this year to the WSSDA Region 4, and we look forward to that event. So plan on Saturday, the 22nd for that. But this weekend is the Scout Chili Cook-Off. And I've been invited as a judge, and they're hoping for 200 people to come out, and there are 6 different cooks going. So I would say to everyone, come on out. It's at the Masonic Lodge, and we'll look forward to what's coming or what's cooking this weekend. Strategic planning is continuing right now. We have Thursday meetings a couple of times a month, and we're getting close to wrapping up the portion with our community, and we'll be moving to phase 2 as next year starts with our staff and having them heavily involved in really looking at goals that have been discussed and having them bring to life what they feel are priorities among those goals. So the competencies for students have been decided, and now we'll turn to the goal buckets and what can be involved. I also want to take this moment to let everyone know that, of course, the reconfiguration has been a significant discussion tonight. I will be making a presentation in just a bit around that, but I want to talk about the budget in relation to decisions that we have to make. Every week, Darlene, who just presented, works with me on a new budget draft, because what is happening right now with the legislature is both the Senate and the House have put forth their proposals for the state budget, and there have been no final decisions. We track all of that to determine if we are seeing indeed either an increase to funding, any decreases in areas, and there's new legislation out there around potential increases for special education funding and transportation. So we're watching that. What I'd like to say to the board to keep you up to date is that we are seeing that there is a strong possibility that we will have positive inflow for revenue. Certainly, we recognize a few things. Legislation around special ed funding is looking positive. That's good news for us because we spend about 1.4 million over and above what we're funded for special education. So that will be welcomed if it indeed comes. We also see that our enrollment is stabilizing. I've shown in my budget presentations where we have lost 24 students since last October, but we see that we're having a plateau, and we've looked at some other significant conservative estimates that have been used in the past, and I am recommending that we consider using quite flush enrollment numbers for budgeting. And if we do that, I think that we'll see, of course, revenue that can assist us as well. And I also have to say that I see that the regionalization is going to continue to flow to SQUIM in the way that it has, and we may even see that with recommendations in the future that we see some level of increase. So I want to be really positive about what could come versus us having only the sky is falling discussions for the past, well, year. We are still facing a deficit. The deficit that I think if we utilize the 1.3 in ESSER money that we have as residual, we'd be looking at a 1.876, $1,876,000 deficit. What has happened, though, is we have had additional retirements right before spring break. We actually had multiple retirements during the week before spring break. So I'd like everyone to know that what I will present tonight around the reconfiguration really works to do what some people have requested tonight and make sure that we're having a clear separation between total budget and the decision and explain why. And I think that's a fair request, and I will certainly share more at that point. But right now, the deficit that we're seeing, we are looking at an improved status over where we were, and now we all need to cross our fingers that the Senate and House budgets, as proposed, pass. Lastly, I'd like to share that OPA is going to be enjoying a ceremony for a dedication of a flagpole from the Michael Troybert chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution, and that's going to happen on Thursday, May 18th at 1:30. And I just wanted to put that out there to the public because once again, it's an example of partnership, and I'm really looking forward to this meaningful ceremony. And it's been a long time in coming for OPA to have the flagpole there, and we look forward to that.
Any questions from the board on any of those items? You want to keep looking at, we also have Patrice who's in virtually, so. Hi Pat, I know you're still there. Okay, with that, we are going to move on to board business. And our first topic is the configuration. And I know the board there's been plenty of questions that the board has posed to you reading, and I think that there's, based on what we've heard from public, I give you a chance to sort of present on that. So,
well, I'll go up and present as everyone else has. That's only fair, and we'll talk about the specifics. Okay, we're having a technical difficulty.
All right, so I'm here this evening to present to all of you, including the board, because there have been numerous questions, of course. Your passion tonight has certainly been heard, and I have received significant comment through email, visits, telephone calls, so I absolutely come in the spirit tonight that I have heard people, and I understand the concerns around the reconfiguration. And one of the biggest issues that I heard again tonight is about the why. Why would we even consider doing this? So I'm going to talk to you about that from my vantage point, along with the how and the when, so that you can hear more and understand my rationale for things. We're just going to go through this, and I've attempted to bring tonight what I feel are answers for folks who have asked some very serious questions, and you deserve to know more. So the last 2 months where we've been talking about this, it has solicited so many ideas, and I want you to know that those ideas have been under consideration. There have been many conversations that have ensued, so some of you in this room have had conversations with me directly, and I appreciate that. I also want to thank all the parents and all the staff members. We're talking right now in what I call a combined audience, because parents and staff sometimes are the same person and sometimes they are not. And so there are different interests on those groups as well, and I want to make sure I'm covering it all. I really do appreciate the thoughtful comments, but I also understand how passionate people have been with their input. So I respect it. So the concept of the elementary reconfiguration is not new. It's been around in our district for about 6 years. Actually, exactly 2 years ago in April, a SQUIM Gazette article actually ran about the reconfiguration idea when a different superintendent was in place. And it did not occur, and it was around timing. And what I will say to you tonight is that we're going to talk about timing, because it is a very, very challenging situation. I'm not sure for great change that the time ever comes where we have complete unity around that the time is best. But I will acknowledge that there are times that can be better and times that can be more challenging. And what's going to be important is how we use our time in making this decision. So I do want to say that part of my coming to you is that when I arrived here and heard about this interest, certainly I have lived experience in this model, so I do understand it, and I think that perhaps I see the benefits and have a vision that's different than others because I have had those experiences. It doesn't mean that those experiences will necessarily be what SQUIMs are, because we're unique. Every community is unique and made up of different students, families, staff. Please understand, I know that. But I can see the benefits. And I'm very passionate about that because I truly do. And I do appreciate tonight that the way that we've had this discourse is so respectful, because I do wish to give that respect back to everyone else. I do think we're going to have places where we don't agree and we may not see it the same, but I want you to understand how much I do feel there is benefit to be had. I wouldn't be bringing it if I didn't believe that. So our budget outlook has improved, and this is not because things have changed so much since I brought it the first time. We have had changes, of course, to the Senate and the House bringing forth financing in different ways. But I'll also say that the staff reductions that were discussed tonight by Joe, I think that's exactly true. Staff reductions did have a financial savings component, but we're in a different boat right now. And I definitely want to make sure that we understand that the focus on the budget cuts away from students while still trying to right-size our district is what I am bringing forth. And when I talk about right-sizing, sometimes in organizations you just get larger than you need to be to have a certain method used or a certain type of organizational structure. And so, for one thing, we're looking at the district office. And I've brought that up before, and we're continuing to do that. But there are also places in schools that need to be looked at for right-sizing. I will tell you that I think what I've heard from all of the comments that I've certainly received and reviewed, elementary class size is really a community value, and it's a staff value, for sure, for a good reason. There's importance around class size in elementary especially. Reconfigure and resourcing the move is really important. What I've heard from staff is that the move itself is, of course, a big undertaking. And the way that folks were left in my prior conversations seemed to be that there would be just one day for moving that was paid, and that would be a considerable challenge because we talked 87 boxes, and that is, I believe it, right? And so what I'd like to say is that in my presentation today, I'm going to talk about ways that I think we can navigate some of those issues. Transportation. Those logistics of transportation are real. And all of the parents who have been talking about how are we going to get our students from place to place, I want to talk about those things tonight and give very specific ideas so you can see the picture of what that would be like. And then grade level transition opportunities. Students need to have the opportunity to feel as though they've been introduced to what a reconfiguration could look like and have the opportunity to meet other students, get familiar with a new environment, have opportunities for adults to be with them while that happens. And so I'm going to be talking about transition opportunities I see. I believe it was Teresa tonight who spoke about the current first graders who are at Haller and making that transition and then going right back. That has been shared so many times, and it is a legitimate concern. And what I'm going to be coming to today is that I actually believe we should have an option for Haller students in a transition to stay at Haller for next year. And then in the ensuing year, we would start with this full second grade. Okay, but why? Why do this at all? We've got to bridge experiences between our elementary schools. And why would we need to do that? We have gaps between our elementary schools. The experiences are different, and many people may say that that's okay. I think that differences can be okay. I'm not disagreeing about that. But when I am also looking at what achievement issues that we are seeing in our school district, we have school improvement status that we need to address. The reason that this K2, 3, 5 idea has come up is that this bridge could be done if we have students together in the grade bands. Now, if you don't believe that having a K2 school or a 3-5 school with all of the students together has benefits at all, then I can understand that you would disagree with me. But what I do know is when you have a K2 experience where those students are all experiencing developmentally appropriate, someone else brought that up tonight, the developmental experience of students in banded schools can be so well targeted, especially around SEL. social emotional learning aspects. It's very important that we consider that there could be equitable opportunities that come from this across all K-5, because the students are able to be in one band and we can target what they need and have it for all those students at the grade level. Staff collaboration for alignment. You've heard about research and mention of researchers that I also read. And staff collaboration is essential, of course, and we have that in our buildings. You've heard the compliments tonight of our teachers, and I concur. But to have the grade bands together so that all second grade teachers, all fifth grade teachers, as examples, could be working together and collaborating in a collective efficacy model, that has its benefits because it causes alignment. And you heard the word alignment in the guidance counselor's presentation tonight too. That is a critical key for us to move forward. And when you talk about building the skill sets of teachers, I've talked to many teachers in my career who have said they learn best from each other. They learn from people who are targeted for professional development for exactly what they teach. And I think we know that in staff environments, there are times when teachers in a K-5 environment, they have to sit through professional development that may not be targeted for them because we might have testing right now. Perfect example. We have K-5 school. Sometimes you are going to hear about testing requirements when you're a K-2 teacher and you don't have that as a need. So it allows us to be better targeted in our schools for staff. But the early literacy foundations being built in a K-2 school, we would have more of each grade to actually spread students across. And I think what I want you to know is the resources for teaching, as Christine brought up about literacy, we do need to invest in that and be sure that we have robust resource teachers available, especially at that K1-2 level. And then also have the resources at 3-5 for students who need to have that support continue. Learning to learn as an intermediate focus, students coming from 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, they are learning how to be strong learners, and they are going to be in an environment where I think we can think of some very interesting and unique opportunities for them. One of them that I'd like to share, and I will in a bit, is around leadership, because there's a huge benefit to me that I believe about our 5th graders coming together and entering middle school together as one cohort. So research. Is there a study that shows this is a good idea? I was asked this directly, and yes, there is. It's this study right here, and it talks about the fact that kindergarten and 2nd grade, when you have a school configured for them, the social emotional commitments that are made in that school are highly beneficial to those students moving forward. But there are many aspects to benefit in a school, and those who have spoken tonight and said it isn't the configuration that necessarily makes it all happen, I understand that, I really do. But the configuration that we're using right now also isn't maximizing the potential that I think our students could be having, and I also don't think it maximizes the collaboration opportunity for our staff. I believe that we can build on that in this model. So the priorities that I have for the reconfiguration include parity of programming. I'd like to see that we are building together, having the staff members coming together from both schools in the bands so that the programming is equitable across every student's access and what they feel is essential. And I would like teachers to help build this, of course. Growth opportunities. We will have many opportunities that come before us when we have all of our students together in a reconfigured model. And then the collective efficacy for staff, that is at the top of the list for what you should be doing in a school system to build the best achievement. Strategic plan goals will also align with the reconfiguration because there is a developmental focus, and someone brought that up tonight. The developmental focus is critical, and you've got to be paying attention to it. And I think that this model absolutely pays attention to it, but allows for there to be the access for all students. I believe, and you heard it tonight, our current elementary schools, there's so much pride in them, and they absolutely are doing this. They developmentally focus on their children. But for us to bring everyone together, it can allow us to have a complete school culture around those particular aspects. And also building future-focused experiences and readiness. We would like to consider what can be new for the experiences for our students, and bringing in partnerships where we have our students in certain grades all being able to go do particular community-based engagements, field trips. And I've heard in the listening tour, there's a real interest, especially from people who have gone to swim schools in the past, that we get back to some of those basic root type of activities where we're getting students out of the school and get them busy in the community. Do I think you have to be reconfigured to do that? No. But do I think it makes it a bit more viable with a community partner? Yes, because you've got every first grader, you've got every fourth grader in the same place and can have the same experiences to get ready for what goes on outside the school. So you've seen us before. This is the vision that I have. I do feel that we would have a learning center focus, and we would define what that learning center would look like. It would take us time to build and get this to be very strong. But starting soon is important because then the structure is in place to launch the programming. Okay, so conversations are important in these areas: logistics, transitions, timeline, and moving. My proposal is that we immediately begin advisory groups. These advisory groups would begin, staff would be surveyed for a group that they would like to participate in, if they would, and the steering committee for any of these issues would have a majority of staff members as the planning committee, along with parents who have concerns, interests, or ideas. And I really am soliciting that people come who have ideas of how we can get this done and make sure that community input is represented. These are the work groups. I'm proposing that we begin by making sure that we're addressing, we'll take moving, for example. There are many aspects to moving that need to be addressed. And with the improved budget status we have, I'd like to say and commit to the fact that resourcing what we need to do for one-time costs to do this right and have teachers feel as though it's absolutely manageable, and also feel like there's not going to be a repeat of these issues of the past. I've literally heard from people who say, I had paint, art materials melt because the way things were stored, it just completely was ruined to the tune of thousands of dollars worth of things. I walked into a classroom and my things were in the middle of the floor, no organization, things loose. We can't ever have something like that again. But what it's going to take is some planning and some very specific input from people who are impacted the most. The configuration, making sure that we have a map that is working for each of the schools. We've already started that work, but we need to have much more input from those who are affected, making sure that we're thinking about things like cafeteria, the playground. And these are just a basic list. Communication and events. I heard tonight that people feel like there's been blindsiding, that people haven't known what's going on. That is something we need to correct. Communication is essential. We've got to do it right. Staffing, scheduling, I've had questions, who would go where, how would you decide, when? I think we should have staff input to help decide those things and make sure that we're doing this in a fair and reasonable way that meets people's needs, and also bring up the questions that are the hard questions. Transportation's a big one. One thing I'd like to say is, who do we have from Grey Wolf here? Thank you. Grey Wolf students have been riding the bus to the stadium and having the transfer bus experience for years. And Heller students have not had that same experience unless they have been riding the bus from their house. And so I think that what we need to do is some education around what has always been present in school district, because we have a really strong transfer bus system between the two schools, and talk about what it would look like. And those students who are walkers can still walk to school. They would just walk to the transfer bus instead of walking to a classroom. But we would need to have our groups think about personnel side so that we have an effective system to use. I also would say to you that there are probably other ideas that would need to be up here besides this short list. And this advisory group would certainly be the model we'd use to make sure we're fulfilling all of those needs, and it'd be organized. So when would we think about even doing this? I propose that we consider that PDM, those are professional development Mondays, that we begin by mapping what we can do on those Mondays to meet, and then decide what needs to be done outside of that. And central office will need to be a very strong partner to hear from the advisory groups what needs to be decided, what needs to be done, what needs to be communicated, and that becomes our job. That's what we're there to do, is support the system. Moving classrooms. I'd like to say tonight that I would like to work with the local associations to develop a building moving plan that actually seeks to offer staff choice. Because what I've heard is a one size isn't going to fit all. That choice for folks is very important for a few reasons. Past experiences in SWIM of things getting moved in classrooms has been very challenging. And people, we heard it tonight, there's not trust. People do not trust that it will be done well, or that people will have the time they need. And I'd like to really work with folks on that. I think that there are times where we want to have things taken care of for us, and times when we want to do it ourselves. And why can't we have a choice about that? Or a hybrid model of it. Lastly, I will say this, I've been a Navy wife for a long time, and I've been through a lot of moves, and I've been through multiple types of moves, do it yourself, have someone else come and do it. It really depends what you want done and how you want to see and have your experience be. And this is what I recognize too. People do have plans. They don't want to think and worry about the move, and maybe resources in the right place and the right time will be helpful for that endeavor. But I think staff have to advise how this happens, and working with local associations would be the way I propose we do it. Okay, improved budget forecast. So I will say that class size became an input issue I read over and over again. And I did go back and consider any place we had overage, because there were very significant concerns about classes getting too big. And I absolutely share the thought that keeping our class sizes lower in elementary is important. So I have gone through, we don't know what the kindergarten enrollment will be, right? We're just projecting, but we tried to make a fair projection and have adjusted so that the proposal, because of the new budget forecast, we can move so that we would have 48 classroom teaching positions in elementary. Transportation. I actually had someone write and say, don't tell me about my child having to get on the bus at home, and I'm not trying to. It's true. We're going to keep our bus routes going. We're going to make sure that students can be picked up at home, just as always, and I understand many people don't want to use that. Transfer busing from the stadium is well established, and those buses now will only be K2 buses going to Gray Wolf. And what we'd like to propose is that we start a ready-to-ride program. The Transportation Department had talked to me earlier this year, not about reconfiguration, but about the fact that many students who are young are getting on the buses and not having formal training around how to ride them, and would really appreciate this. And to me, the transfer ride is the perfect time and place to put this into force. And so we're going to investigate that. And then I really want to say that some of the feedback I've received is that there are parents who are very concerned about their K2s getting on a bus and riding it. And I have looked at other school districts that do allow parents to ride the bus and have that experience with their child for the first few weeks of school and get the routine in place and be able to go to the other school and talk to the teachers and see how that goes. And I'm absolutely open to us having the advisory group, which will have parents on it, work to this end if that's of interest. Logistical concerns, we know that there are things that would pop up, and so I would like to commit that the district office will be working, our directors, our administrative team, to make sure that we're addressing these concerns, and the advisory groups are going to be established immediately so that we can move forward with planning. This is more about the why. Our fifth graders coming together in one cohort, there is research around cohorts of students going into a new school, especially around middle school, together as one unit, is a good idea. And I think right now we all recognize that we have had challenges in our middle school that we're trying to work on, but this is one way that we absolutely can set things up for a degree of success. And then kindergartners and first graders moving into this new program of early learning. I think the sooner the better, because the collective efficacy aspect of it is so important. I do think the second grade being able to have the option at Howler is a fair one, and I can understand the issues around that transition. So getting liftoff, I think our focus has been around whether this is a good idea or not. I feel very strongly that it is a good idea for us to have renewal, and this idea will bring us together in a new way and really take out this challenge we have between two elementary schools that are having some experiences that are the same and some that are different. And the experience of transitioning itself can be a positive one. It can be a moment of students finding things that are exciting and new. It doesn't have to be that students will not feel success and will have a great anxiety if we do it right. So I think teachers helping to advise this is critical, as well as parents, because you know your children best. So some of those defining moments that I would propose that we have meet principal nights, student meet and greets together so that they're meeting each other, building tours so that students, parents, and staff can see our buildings with new eyes, the transportation ready-to-ride opportunities to make sure that the transfer busing works well, end-of-year student activities this year that would bridge the familiarity of the children with each other, thinking like field days, and year-end celebrations so that we are closing out experiences in either school for students or staff and families in a way that is celebratory and does honor all of the time that students and staff and parents have had with their schools. So the timing. I think that the strong benefits of the early learning development that can happen along with the fifth grader cohort coming together and the staff collaboration that can happen for each of the grade levels, it needs to begin as soon as possible to realize the benefits. And when I look back at the history here and see that this has been on the table for 6 years, and 2 years ago, it was the same article around, oh, I don't know, the time's not right. I think the time is now. And I understand how challenging it is. I do. Now, we did have a gentleman here earlier who had brought up about K-5 DBS and OPA. We are going to move with our budget improvements to retain K-5 at DBS. And we will expand OPA at grades 4 and 5. We'll have 8 additional student slots at each of those grades going forward. So with that, that concludes my presentation and my rationale for the reconfiguration. I do sincerely respect that we have much difference between us and from many of the comments that I heard tonight, but I also hope you can understand that I truly believe that this is a liftoff for our district in a new direction, and it will prove that we can have something great come from something that can be hard.
I got one thing for you real quick. You did say we should do this reasonable and fair, right?
Excuse me, right, the public comment, unfortunately, the public comment portion of the meeting is.
Does anybody else think in this room tonight that reasonable and fair would be, maybe we just vote in here as a room?
Sir?
I
So
think that
we
the
have
spirit
to-
of democracy, that's a great idea.
We have to now talk about whether or not, where the board is on this decision.
Let's let
Okay?
people stew on that one for a minute.
So, first, before we have discussion, we'll have a chance to answer questions. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll say, given the concessions from the superintendent, especially with that first grade, having the option to switch, and the potential benefits for our elementary and middle school, I move that we support the K-235 reconfiguration as proposed.
And to clarify, that's beginning the next school year, the 20.
Correct, that we implement it for the 23-24 school year as proposed.
Do we have a second for that motion?
I'll second. I'll second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Now we're gonna open it up for the board, either discuss or questions regarding what our superintendent has proposed.
Can you guys speak up? We can't hear you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry.
We made motions to vote on it.
Any, Director Rowe, do you want to speak to your motion first?
No, I have a question. I think it was Ms. Mack that brought up the reading remediation, and then how her concerns with that would be affected with this reconfiguration. Do you see that being something you would still be able to keep and implement with this reconfiguration, or do you think that those two become exclusive of each other?
So the reading remediation is supported through title and LAP money, as well as special education services that also assist with reading remediation, and that money will follow the students. So although there will be additional students at the school at those grade levels requiring exactly what she shared, we will be having the same amount of support go to the school. And as we test students and determine that there may be increased need, we'll certainly be looking to address that.
So it's not mutually exclusive. That was the impression I got. Yeah.
Well, I think one, not to speak for you, but one of your points was around the scheduling, and that morning scheduling was something that was of definite interest. I think that she's right, that when you have K-1-2 in a building, you can't swing your remedial services to grades 4 and 5 in the afternoon, who are the older students. But what you do have that is different is you have you have more sections of a grade level. So you also have tier 1, which is the in-classroom experience, where you can also have different opportunities for students to walk to read, for example, if that's what the school just choose to do. I'm not saying that model would be what works, but sometimes there's a larger spectrum, so we can get targeted instruction to students there as well.
Okay. Yeah, you mentioned the cohort groups and the collaboration among teachers. I learned a new CTE, which is collaborative teacher efficacy, which is basically the group teachers believing their kids can learn at high levels. And I think that's a real important concept. Another thing that attracts me, I think you mentioned, was teachers collaborating, professional collaboration, teacher collaboration within grade level. So essentially you would have all the second graders and all the second grade teachers in one building at one time, and they could sit and collaborate and decide what kind of remediation, enhanced education, they would have flexibility within their level.
So they would have proximity to each other, of course, so they're having those interactions. I will say that when you have as many sections as we would be sending to one school, that the specialist schedule is what supports planning time. So your music, your PE, and you would probably end up having 2 teams that would have planning time separately from each other, but then we have PDM Mondays where everyone could be together at once. I will say that's one of my ideas around the advisory groups, to have a scheduling, staffing group so that teachers can talk about this and give their ideas around how they'd like to see those things work out.
And any thought, you mentioned PE and music and art, and any thought, are they in the same building? Do they have a PE teacher, or is the PE teacher in the morning at one school and in the afternoon at another school? Or have you given any thought to music and art, how that would?
Well, that is one of the conversations I'd like to see in an advisory group model, because I think there will be specialists who would like to weigh in on what they see is best for what they teach. But from my experiences and what I've heard from input is that people really would value having their own dedicated specialists, because when you have dedicated specialists, you maximize how much time that person has in the building. You're building relationships for those grade span, because specialists see students as they come through. So I can imagine that specialists would be dedicated to a building.
And then like you, I heard a lot about community, neighborhood community school, they all walk to school together and so on. This would be different. I like the idea that the transfer buses, so on, but, you know, and parents riding buses and introducing kids to their new school. And I think all of that would have to be pretty robust and well managed so that to mitigate whatever concerns kids and parents have, be minimized to whatever degree possible. Change is inevitable. You know, I looked up change, and there's all kinds of quotes from ever about the only thing that's of permanence is change itself and all that. And I know change can be tough times, but there are things you can do to mitigate that change or make it less of a challenge, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word or not.
Well, I think in this, I'm coming to you with this recommendation because I do feel it's what we need to have a renewal around how we move our students through our system. But I do have to say that there has been great concern about this decision, and I would want as much input as possible, because the way change is going to be affected the best is if there is input and it matches best what people feel is important around a reconfigured model. Transportation and logistics is one of the most often evidenced feedback. that system has to work.
This would, I was also thinking in terms of specialists in the HICAP program would, I mean, it would just mean that, I would think, a benefit in that all of the third and fourth graders all being together with a HICAP specialist could move by age group, right? So
That certainly would be our hope, and we would also invite HICAP to be part of the advisory group model so that we can hear the input around what's needed.
And I'll speak to the gentleman that asked for a poll the audience type of, like, let's be a millionaire throwback. The issue that I have that I would not find that compelling to this board member would be, this is a room full, obviously, of people that want to speak up against this idea. So I don't think that would be the correct sample size to pull from, so I don't see a benefit in pulling the room in that. I just want to speak to that on why I don't think that would be beneficial in a decision-making decision right at this moment. Just that one thing I wanted to bring up.
But yeah, if you let people know what was going on, we'd probably know.
Well, and I'll speak to that too. I don't want to get it back and forth, but the last thing I'll say to that, there was newspaper, social media, emails, strategic planning sessions. I don't know what more you were looking for to get notified that this was going on over the past month or so that we've been having these meetings. But I think, I will commend, I think our superintendent did an excellent job of trying to get the community involved. And then we did come back with the feedback that we heard from you and brought it to Regan, and it looks like she has made a lot of those adjustments in her presentation. As far as transportation was a big one that we brought up. Why now? A lot of these questions that you have given to us in emails and stuff, we have presented to her and have had discussions that, hey, this needs to be addressed if we are to move forward. And a big one that we said was having advisory committees where parents and administration can be on those committees. So we're not just making these decisions like some of you have felt was behind closed doors. You can volunteer to be part of that decision because, you know, many hands make for light work. So, you know, we welcome it. You know, I for one will be volunteering my time, my trailers and stuff to help move if teachers want to move their stuff themselves. But I just want to speak to that, just so you understand where the board and our decision making is kind of focused around. And I think with her having advisory groups, I can be supportive of this recommendation because I think she's pulling the community in the process. You're not going to change your mind, just like I don't think she's going to change your all minds on the path forward, but what she can say is I will make you a part of the process, which I think is going to be good.
I would like to make a motion to put it to a public vote.
I'd like to share some of my thoughts on it. And I know we have Pat that's attending remotely, but I do have a couple of questions I want to ask first. The first one is, I did see the bullet about DVS, and I know that's been a concern. I think I answered one question about the K through 5, but just as it relates to any cuts on the DVS side, that's not part of this proposal in any way, shape, or form. Okay. And then it was addressed on there about START. I believe it was one of the advisory groups, and I assume they'll take a look at that. But one of the questions that did come up quite a bit for those folks that are driving, have students that are at 2 different schools, and they're really concerned about the start time of one versus the start time of the other, and trying to navigate that with the schedules. And I'm assuming that's one of the big reasons for kind of the advisory groups, work groups, to try to. I assume that all options are on the table in that regard, so far as making it work for our families.
Yes, I mean, right now we don't have the same start time at either elementary, and we continue to feel like we would do that, but the advisory group could weigh in and give a recommendation.
Okay, right. So a few thoughts that I have on this. One, I do want to commend you with your recommendation. I do notice there's significant differences in the recommendation now versus what we've reviewed in past meetings, and I think that is being very responsive to some of the concerns that the community has raised. And regarding second grade, I think that's huge. Bringing in advisory groups, work groups, all of that. I think that is, I think definitely will be well received. So I do want to thank you for that. As a teacher myself, I do struggle with not feeling some full support from more staff being involved, and so that part's a real struggle for me. I really, big moves like this, I would really like to see more folks that are embracing the change, and so I really have a hard time with that part. And I also want to call out the fact that for a lot of folks that must be not quite used to the relationship where you are reporting to 5 individuals as opposed to just one. And we don't always agree as a board. And I think this is going to be one of those situations where as a board we don't agree. And that's a really challenging spot for me. But I just want to call out that I feel like every part of this has been, you have led with integrity, you have reached out, you have gotten feedback. And I feel like that's been done with the utmost amount of integrity, and I want to thank you for that. I think I'm at a point where I'm not sure that I can be as supportive of this, but I appreciate the steps that have been made. I would have loved to see kind of some of those changes that were just proposed, particularly as it relates to class size. I do wonder how those would have been received by more folks, but I understand we're kind of in a time crunch. So that is a part of this decision as well. So that's sort of where I'm at as for my individual vote, and we haven't given Pat a chance to weigh in, so I do want to make sure that she has a chance as well when she's Pat.
Yeah, hi. I have been listening very carefully, and I want to initially call out a couple of my mock trial students who have taken the time to come and participate in this process and offer their feedback. Ruby and Georgia, and I know some of the other students have also reached out to me, and I want them to know that I'm hearing them, and I really appreciate their feedback. And I hope that we, as we are putting these advisory groups together, consider putting some students on there as well, because I think they have obviously the perspective of people who have a lot invested in their time in the school district and care a lot about it as well. And so I think that is really important. And like I said, I appreciate them taking the time and really putting their thoughtful effort into their comments. I agree that the issues that I've mostly been hearing about from people involve transportation, and those are real things. I was a working mom with 3 kids in school, and I know what it takes to get kids from, to different schools that start at different times, and that the anxiety that can cause. And so I've heard that, and I think that those issues are being addressed. I've been a working mom who has gotten kids to different schools at different times, and I'm a big proponent of carpools and leaning on friends and other ways of getting kids to school if buses aren't available or if bus times don't work or whatever. So I think it's important to address those things. I don't think that those are deal breakers. And there's also been a lot of concern about just the effect of more change after the upheaval that's been caused by COVID the last few years, and those are real concerns also. Our graduation rate certainly shows that dramatically the impact of COVID, among other things. And, the flip side of that is that I really believe that what the superintendent is proposing is an attempt to create a better environment for our kids. And that's what we're trying to, that's what they need. The kindergartners who are starting were not affected by COVID schooling. The first graders who will be in school next year have been to a full year of school. And at some point, if you have a good idea to move forward, I don't think the idea of just keeping things the same for the sake of keeping things the same is a reason to do that. If there is a possibility that another model might provide some other benefits that we haven't had the opportunity to see yet because we haven't adopted the model. And so I'm just really speaking from the heart here. I listened to the parents who are speaking, and I understand that you're being asked to accept a new thing that you've never seen how it works. And so, to a certain extent, I think this as with many things, the success of it will depend on everybody who is invested getting behind it. And, we don't always, sometimes we put our best arguments out there. I'm a lawyer, I know, sometimes you put your best arguments out there, and sometimes they're successful, and sometimes somebody else's argument, which is also heartfelt, ends up being the one that prevails, and everybody goes on, and I think right now, regardless of how this comes out, we just need to realize that we're a community. We're not one side or the other side. Everybody is trying to do the best thing for their kids. The board members, the superintendent, the parents, the teachers, and at some point, though, we need to get on the same page. And we will all certainly be invested in making this work for our kids and our families. Like Michael said, I will be there this summer with my truck and my markers and my work clothes, and doing anything that I can to help make this successful. I've had the great privilege this year of working with the mock trial team, and I'm so inspired by the teachers and the kids. I really feel like with the right spirit and the right hope and optimism and effort, and just actual effort, this could be a great thing for our school district. But you have to be willing to suspend your skepticism, or we all have to, and to be able to embrace the idea of trying something new for the benefit of our kids. So that's where I am, and I thank everybody for their input, and I really feel like it is our obligation to do the absolute best that we can for your kids and our community's kids. And that's what we're all trying to do. And we will all be invested in making this a success. So thank you.
So, Lauren, I think you have.
Yeah, I just wanted to add.
And if you can speak up.
Sure. I don't have a very powerful voice. I will try. I also want to say that I've read all the emails that I've received and given all of this a lot of thought. I also, like Pat, was a working mom who was driving my kid around early mornings in Seattle. I also, as an administrator and a teacher, I moved a school from one building to another one. And I made it work, and so did my staff and the students as well. And I think part of it came from attitude of framing it not as a disruption, but as a fresh start and an opportunity. And I think that our superintendent has done a good job framing it in that way, that her passion for this and her knowledge of this kind of alignment goes a long way to helping me understand what this would mean. I also want to just also elaborate on what Pat said, that to go forward with this, we really need everyone's support. And I know that if the vote goes for a support of this program, that will upset a lot of people who are here tonight who came all the way to talk with us. But I hope that we can move past that to coming together for our kids and making sure that on our path forward that we're all on board with what transpires in the school district. I think that's really important. We can't be successful unless we have everyone with us. So change is always hard, even when it's good. Nobody likes to move, but the thing is, we're in the 21st century, and sometimes the old alignments don't work as well. We started with one-room schoolhouse and expanded from there, and now this new alignment means that another shift that I think could be a very good thing for the district.
Director Jeffries?
No, I was just going to say, we haven't taken a vote. I'm not sure exactly how it's going to come out. What if the vote is, no, we don't want to do this? What happens then?
If the vote is no, we don't do it, we don't do it. I would say that I would be working with the school community to talk about what it is that we can do to get renewal around some of the things that we do need to address. But I also will recognize the pride in the community, because that's been evident to all of us.
Would there be an invite to like a think tank room for that?
Yes. Advisory groups.
Yeah,
sure. Advisory groups.
Absolutely.
These modifications, these advisory groups, so whether we vote yes or no, let's say we vote yes, with modifications, those groups that might come up with more modifications, like we presented some tonight, there may be more, depending on what those groups, how that group comes up, the modifications make sense, and move us in the direction we see that would be best for us. There still could be some kinds of modifications made to the plan based on what you hear from these groups.
The vote tonight that you're taking is for reconfiguration or not.
Okay.
So if the reconfiguration vote passes, these advisory groups are going to be dedicated to getting the work and the perspective and the opinions from folks to make it work, and make it work in a way that is the best way possible. If the vote is no, then we will certainly be talking again about what could happen next, and your idea about a think tank, that's a viable idea to me. But I would be prepared tonight to tell you what that would look like.
Anything else?
Yeah, I would, and this is to the board, probably to the dismay of some of the people in the audience, I apologize, but we did have a superintendent in the past, I was not part of the board then, that came with a recommendation to the board. The board did not take that recommendation at the time, and that was, from what my understanding, part of the reasoning for the superintendent leaving the district. So I just important to consider the support that you show to the superintendent. Not saying that our superintendent's going to leave. That's not the intent. No. Not saying she's going to leave. Yeah. But what I'm saying is, when you have a vote of support behind an idea that they come up with, I think it's important to show the support if you believe in what they're presenting.
I think we're. Did you want to say something?
I will accept the vote of the board either way that it goes, and we'll continue to forge ahead with everyone to make the most productive choices for whatever comes next. So thank you.
And I would just, there was never a proposal brought to the board. There was a discussion, an idea that was brought up. talked about within the district, I think, and then it was decided that the time wasn't right, but it was never brought to the board. And it didn't play, that particular thing didn't play a role in anybody resigning whatsoever. So
I hope that doesn't affect the decision of you guys, that you're afraid that she's gonna leave.
Not the phrase she's gonna
Put that in
leave.
everybody's
You
head
didn't,
now.
you didn't hear the end of it. I said if they bring a proposal that you can support, but you're afraid of supporting your community, also remember you have a superintendent that is looking for support too. That was the end of my statement, not that, I don't think she's gonna
So
quit.
for her job security, not for our children.
No. I said I don't think she's in danger of leaving. That wasn't the point. It was, if you have a proposal that you believe in, don't let just the fact that you're hearing some community that may not support some part of that. You also have a superintendent that's asking for support. So I'm just asking him to weigh that, and that was it.
I want to say, as somebody that has had a lot of, I would say, a lot of tough questions, even sitting in my position as board president, I have asked our superintendent a lot of tough questions, and I have shared with her where I am on this decision. I can attest that she probably knows where I'm going to vote, and she has handled that with the incredible amount of professionalism and grace, and I think that I want to commend her on that, and I don't think that there's a concern, and I don't think there's a concern with the board. I think the board is going to vote where the board's going to vote. And I think we're at a point where we need to do it as a roll call vote. So Tracy, will you call the roll on the vote?
Absolutely. Director Johnson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director Jeffries, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director Halverson, how do you vote? Aye. Director Roca, how do you vote?
Aye.
President Pickens, how do you vote?
Vote no.
Majority rules, we pass the reconfiguration.
Okay, motion is passed. We're going to take a 10-minute recess. All right, we will bring the meeting back to order, and just want to share if I can with the rest of the board, and I just shared it with some folks outdoor, just so y'all know, regardless of my vote, the board position is, even as board president, I do represent the vote of the board, and that position is clear, and that's what I will represent, is where the board is at with this decision. So I just want to make sure that I call that out. So the board has voted, and that's what I'll represent. So, with that, we have, did you have anything further that you want to add on this topic at this point? Not putting you on the spot, but.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay, so we are going to move on to 10.02. We have did you want to introduce this one?
Yes, so this evening Darlene will be sharing what's called the ICOS report, and it's related to facilities.
Okay, the ICOS report is the information and condition of our schools report, and it's a report that is done through the system of OSPI at the state level, and it's a requirement that once a year I bring our building conditions to you, and it's just a presentation. There's no vote on it. It's just informational but required to be brought to a board meeting to share. And so I just want to report that this report that you see is a report that has not really been updated since we have done the central kitchen project. And at that time, when the project was just about finished in the 18-19 school year, going into 19-20 school year, McKinstry or Banner, or the combination of both of them went through the buildings, and then they looked at like components of our buildings, and then they updated things that they could to give a grading to the conditions of components of our buildings. So I can see that as we move forward with our capital projects levy that we're doing now, as some of the components of our buildings are upgraded, like HVAC of our buildings, roof projects, gym floors, things like that, all of our technology, that at the end of that, then Winneha will help go into the system at OSPI and upgrade the condition of some of the components of our buildings. And so you'll see next year, there might be some changes, but most likely they'll wait till the end of the projects, and then they'll go in and they'll change all of them. So I just want you to know it's the same as last year. It hasn't changed, but it's just a requirement that I bring it to your attention. I think last year, Director Jeffries asked if he could go into the ICOS system and look at that, and you cannot. Yeah, so I looked and tried to mess around in there without having to sign in, and you can't do it. So anyway, that's but you have the attachment with this report that it is just a continuation of what the report has been for the last few years.
And you're asking for an approval of, board approval of this?
No,
or
it doesn't need a board approval. It doesn't, it's just a presentation
Just
that's
to make sure
required
we're
each
aware.
year. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
I know this covers the high school, middle school, are there reports from Grable, Ellen Howard?
Yeah, there are reports on all of the buildings, but those are the ones that are meant to come forward because you can see there's like a lifespan of years, and I think those are the ones that are like the most prevalent of the components needing upgrading or just making sure that as you go to the next span of years that we're paying attention to what we have what we're being graded on. So.
And that's mainly for kids, like, would they evaluate the central office building?
I don't know that the central office is part of that. I think it's the buildings where, maybe. I mean, I don't know because I don't really remember seeing anything for the district office per se. It's more the buildings where students are, in.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. When we see things like, it says like, our lighting's at 0%, it's, unsatisfactory. It says no emergency lighting, exit signs are failing. Is this stuff that we're addressing?
Yeah, I think so. I think that as they are it's been a while since they put it in, but I do believe that they're addressing that. But not only that, but as the fire marshal comes through every single year, those are some of the same things that get addressed, and then they come back and check to make sure that we address those things, especially things that have to do with emergency.
Sure.
So the new facilities committee that we launched this year, I think one way to process this report is to take it through the facilities committee, have our facilities director verify what he knows has been addressed over the past couple of years on this report, and then make an update about what we'd like the capital projects levy to incorporate, or we just fix on our own. But the other thing we need to think about is how we use this report for our eventual bond ask, and make sure that we really think about giving people enough information about what can't be fixed. I mean, things like lighting, you can do something about it, but cracking, crumbling, those things just are age related. We're gonna have to address it.
And I really think that is the purpose of the whole report is, your buildings are being inspected, and then, your building system lasts forever. It needs to be there.
Well, I noticed that there were some seismic inefficiencies, and that seemed to be a real big thing. So is that something that, are we required to get that taken care of? Or shouldn't we get that? I mean, or is that on some long-term list?
There actually is a long-term list at OSPI regarding seismic needs, and our school district has some information on the report, but we aren't in one of the zones for, tsunamis.
Yeah, no, they get full, like, a lot of funding for that, right?
So the state recognizes that in this state, there are, so many needs across the school districts that we're all on this basically.
Not, I mean, yeah, it's on a list, but then there are other schools, like, if you're familiar with the Cape Flattery School District there, I think it's the EFA one, which is like literally on the water, and it's back a ways, but still it's like at sea level. So there are other, sure, along the Pacific coast too, other districts that might be a little bit higher on priority, but I think that there is still that recognition for a lot of districts, I think, in Western Washington, where there's,
Yeah, the big one could happen anytime. Yeah.
Okay. All right, we will go ahead and move on to 10.03. I proposed this language. This is in order for us to submit something for WSSDA to a proposal submitted to WSSDA. The school board has to vote in favor of it first prior to it to be submitted. It does not become a WSSDA legislative position until the legislative conference, in which then WSSDA will vote for it. But for anything to be submitted, a school board must first vote in favor. And the reason this is important is because our representatives at WSSDA, they do not lobby for things that they think school districts will be supportive of. They need it in black and white. This is a position of the members of WSSDA, being school board members across the state, before they will advocate. Sometimes they sign in on certain bills, and they will sign in as other because it's not clear to them whether or not there's a position in support or not support, but they still have concerns that they want to bring to certain committees or our representatives. But then sometimes they'll sign in as con or sign in as pro because there is a clear position. But those are all established based on the proposals that get submitted by school boards. And that proposal window is going to be open a week from now. And so I submitted this for our consideration, maybe just our first item for consideration. But at our next board meeting, there's other priorities that you want to submit. That would certainly be appropriate as well. So we can talk a little about this one, but I'll go ahead and start by making a motion that we as a board support this to be submitted to WSSDA for consideration when their legislative window opens next week. I would just ask for a second, and we can open it for discussion.
I'll second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion or questions?
So you want to explain a little further, we're voting to accept this. Can you explain?
Sure.
Elaborate a little bit more on the this?
Yes, absolutely. Legislative that improves the regionalization funding model and the staff mix funding model, consistent with the 2022 recommendations from the K-12 Basic Education Compensation Advisory Committee, also known as the Rebase Committee. They have a really long name, but then when you say Rebase Committee, everyone seems to know what you're referring to. And so the big piece, first I'll explain regionalization and then I'll explain staff mix. The big thing about the regionalization, that they take the starting figure, which allocates around 72,000 and change per state funded staff member, and then each district, depending on which region they're at, they get an added percentage to that. Currently we get 6%. So that moves ours to around 77,000 and change per state funded staff member. Districts like North Kitsap are at 18%. North Kitsap's not very far from us, but a huge difference in that regionalization percentage. rebase committee had a very wise recommendation that does not look like it will be certainly not fully implemented this legislative session, which is that no bordering district should have any different, it should be 2% at the most. So if you border a district, yes, sometimes it's appropriate that the regionalization percentage might be slightly different, but it should not be greater than 2%. Right now, there are 6% increments based on regionalization. They're saying the most it should be is 2%. My position would be, or I would like our position to be to advocate for WSSDA to lobby for any increases to our regionalization percentage. 2% is a great step in there. Would be I think that would be a huge win. It could be that they would step that up at different intervals. So a lot of times we see that like with the SPED proposals that are out there, right? That it's not getting to that full amount. So if it started where it's only reduced it to a 4% difference and then do a 2% difference, I think that'd be great. Maybe they just said, well, we'll bring it from 6 down to 3. That would still be very beneficial for our district, where North Kitsap's at 18%. That would mean Shimacon would be at, well, if it's 2%, there'd be at 16%. Swim School District would be at 14%. But even if it's a 3% difference, for example, 18 down to 15 down to 12, right? And so 12, and we're currently at 6. So it's still definitely a benefit. As it relates to staff mix, and I just asked for the board to have, you may want to play around with that term just a little bit. The other term that sometimes uses experience factor. I didn't necessarily like that term because it's a combination of both experience and education. And right now, districts that are above average statewide in both, meaning they need to beat the threshold in both experience and education, they get an extra 4% added to that same regionalization factor. But you do not qualify unless you meet the threshold for both. The rebase committee made a recommendation that you should still, maybe you don't get the full 4%, but you should still get something if you meet the criteria for one and not the other, and vice versa. So that would be a huge step in the right direction, because well, let me back up. The other piece that they would say, we're obviously not experiencing this, but I would be concerned if we were to get 4% or even a portion of the 4%, is also the proposal is that it wouldn't ever be taken away all in one shot. Meaning, if for some reason your staff mix percentage started to change because you had a whole bunch of folks retire, it wouldn't be them all of a sudden taking a 4%. It would also, the way the legislation is now, the way that's passed into law is, once you don't meet that threshold, when they review it they're reviewing it this year, I think it might be every 4 years, it might be 5 years, they immediately pull the 4%. So the other part of the rebase recommendation is that it would be stepped down gradually if your staff mix.
So less disruptive to local budget.
Exactly. So I think those two items are probably the most impactful things that I was really surprised didn't get specifically addressed in this legislative session. They are looking at doing some small fixes here and there to regionalization for those folks that have been for some particular districts that may be negatively impacted by either regionalization or staff mix. For example, the Peninsula School District, they were receiving the 4% staff mix, but now they don't qualify for that starting next school year. And so they were going to immediately lose the 4%. So there is talk about, in fact, the House budget, I believe, adds some incremental, like, no, it's not going to take it from you all at once. So we'll see how that works out, but that is not the overall fix. Those are just district by district small fixes. This proposal is for the overall fix to regionalization and staff. So, sorry, that was a lot. But
No, that's fine.
So it sounds like a positive thing for swim. I mean,
Yes.
I don't have any problem with it.
And keep in mind, I mean, this is a WSSDA proposal,
Yeah.
it's not legislation.
Right, right.
But this might be.
Has a long way to go.
Right, but we've talked about talking to legislators during the off session about things.
Yeah.
Special ed funding, this might be something we want to talk to our representatives about, although they're not on education committees. But we know others that are, and talk to them, because I know there's interest out there among the legislators, at least some of are aware of regionalization inequities. They're not quite sure what to do about it. I think to fix the whole thing is a big chunk of money.
It's $1 billion.
That's just $1 billion.
Some people.
And
Some people think that's a lot of money.
to fix special ed is getting way up there too, I mean, like that. So, I mean, and the state's percent of the budget for education is gradually decreasing, even though it's a paramount duty to amply fund education. Now, I guess to some legislators, 41% is amply. When it used to be 51%, but that was over amply. Is there such a word? But the other thing is the window for WSSDA doesn't really open up till the 17th, so I really haven't been able to get a look at what the submission form is going to look like. Maybe, I can talk to the WSSDA people a little bit and see if they can give me a hint or show me last year's or whatever. So that when it does hit, we can implement the wording. I mean, I intend to vote yes on this. Hopefully we wouldn't, if there's modifications or minor editing that has to be done, the next time we could bring it up again would be the 12th of May. 12th of May? Yeah. And so it might be that between Eric and I as a legislative rep and his motion, we tweak words to essentially mean the same thing when we submit it.
Yeah, I would ask, I'm sure that the board could grant some discretion there as long as it doesn't take away the meaning.
And then it goes to the WSSDA Legislative Committee, and who knows what they'll do.
And eventually we will get a chance to vote on it though in October, I believe, or September? September.
If the legislative says we're gonna add it to the list.
No, I think it has to be.
Well, yeah, I think it'll be added to the list, but they really recommend not to pass it.
Yeah.
Or whatever. The legislative committee, the state legislative committee.
Yeah.
So, but I think we ought to do it, get involved in it, jump in with both feet. And maybe this becomes something we want to talk to our legislators or other legislators about fixing. Like you said, just, even if they fix it a little bit, it'll probably come out to our benefit a little bit.
Yeah, and sorry, I should not have made light of the amount of that cost, because it's not, it is a, significant chunk of change, but that is for the full fix, to make it 2% statewide, so not just, the portion of SQUIM, that's statewide, to ensure that there's only a 2% difference or less between districts. So obviously, I think if the difference was a 3% or even a 4%, that would still be better than 6%. It would still benefit SQUIM, and it would cost even less. So I think any step in the right direction would be positive for us from a funding perspective. So. Did you have any? I don't know, Darlene. I don't know if I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you have any thoughts about this being from the finance perspective, or?
No, I'm glad to see that, we are keeping our regionalization, but you are right. We're in, like I said, Peninsula, they're all at 18%, north, central, south, Farmington. The experience factor, there's just a handful of districts that are getting that right now. I think Fort Townsend is one of them. So I don't know how many more districts would then qualify if they let it be one or the other and get partial, but do benefit.
Yeah. Any other questions? Desar, would you like to cast an advisory vote on this one? I apologize for not asking for the advisory vote on our last action item. What's that?
No problem at all.
Okay.
But yes, for this question.
Any thoughts on this one?
No, not really. It sounds good.
You would recommend in favor vote then?
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Well, Pat, are you in favor?
Aye.
Still there.
Okay, motion
Aye.
passes. We got you, Pat. Okay, and I believe that's gonna bring us to the end of our agenda items. And we have our next meeting is going to be May 8th, is our next, or May, let's see, May 8th?
May 8th, I said 12, but it's the 8th.
Okay, May 8th is our next regular board meeting. And we have a couple of things going on in between then and now.
For the 24th, we have the WSSDA awards.
WSSDA.
Or the
22nd. 22nd?
24th.
It's like a.
WSSDA.
The 22nd.
Oh, the WSSDA.
WSSDA.
Yeah, the 22nd is WSSDA.
Right.
WSSDA doing anything?
Yeah, we'll have, WSSDA will be here, it's a Saturday meeting, I believe. It starts at 10 a.m.
Yeah, and 10 to noon, but noon is usually when they start eating, and so it may go a little longer than that. At least the two I've attended, kind of the business meeting, and then they sat down and ate.
I'd like to thank our fabulous administrative team for being here, and cabinet members for being here for on a late evening, and I know that there's still a lot of work to be done, and so I just want to say that as board members, we stand by to help out in any way that we can, and to you, Rainey, that we are here, whether it's support with committee work, working groups, we are here to stand by. I think some folks have even offered moving trailers and trucks and everything else, but we know there's a lot more work ahead, so we will stand by to help out and support y'all wherever we can. So, thank you all for being here, and thank you very much. So we will go ahead and adjourn.